This is the Waupaca School District Board of Education meeting.
Administrator's report.
A few quick things. The Learning Center has a lockdown drill coming up on Thursday. On Monday, this upcoming week, the WSSCA, the Wisconsin School Safety Coordinators Association, will be on site and will be doing an audit to all 4 of our school buildings. Each building right now is in the process of putting together their own individual building safety teams. We anticipate that these meetings will all begin in January for a majority of the buildings. I know 2 of them are already scheduled to have their first safety meeting in January. On Tuesday, November 26th, the day before Thanksgiving break, we had the last Community School Safety Committee meeting. It isn't the last one, it was the last time we had one. They charged us to continue to move forward, and they're recommending that we move forward with the CRG mapping. We won't be meeting again until we get more work done in district in each of our individual buildings with our safety work that we have in front of us. The next Waupaca Growth Team meeting, it'll be a core team meeting with myself and Aaron and Dave. Theo is Monday, December 23rd at City Hall. And then put in, I don't know if that was yesterday or today, Sandy, was that today or yesterday, added to the packet, I put in for part of my report, I don't know, 11-page document or so that.
Yeah, she sent it out.
Okay. I'm not gonna go over that, but it's just a summary. I wanted you to be aware of that. Yep, that's it. Yep. This, along with some of the other data pieces that we're collecting, will be presented either in January, February, with some recommendations and opportunities that we observe and are gonna recommend that we pursue. So I don't know if anybody has any, I don't even know if you had enough time to look at it.
Well, I had a time to look at it and kind of just go over, but could you just give us, who are the responders here?
Yeah, I've got a list of those, and
I don't mean by name, but I mean like, how many, did everybody in the district receive the staff line?
No, these are my personal one-on-one interviews. So
Okay.
there were 70 people.
7.
Yep, the board, then it was staff, key staff members, and then some communities and parents,
Okay.
members, business people.
So when I see these numbers in the parentheses at the end of each of these sections, would that be the number of responses?
Right.
But it doesn't tell me, does it tell me who the not, again, I don't want names, but I don't know if it's a community member or a staff. It's just numbers.
Right.
Okay.
The ones who were the most informational about the school piece were the staff members, because.
Right. Okay, that I could figure out, but I wasn't quite sure on some of the other sort of the general questions about certain things. Like, what are we doing right now, meaning correct now, and there were 23 responders, but 5 community members, 3 staff, you know?
It could have been.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the meaningful piece, you know, when you're dealing with some business people or some parents that don't know, some of them couldn't answer some of the questions.
Yeah, I understand. Okay.
It's a lot of information, coupled with, it was a couple months ago, I gave you the results of the survey when I met with each of you. So taking that and this, and then the information that I put together in some recommendations that'll be coming to you. And then it can get incorporated when we start the strategic planning process as well.
Did you find any divergence based on the groups you were working with, or particular areas of interest? You mentioned that some
Between the
people
groups?
feel, yes, that they weren't sure.
I don't know if I'm, between the groups, I was just looking at it from the totality of, okay, there were 70 different people who provided information.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through each one and just started tabulating, and then I just tried to put them into categories and groups the best that I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if this is a finished product. I mean, somebody could go through this and say, well, I don't know, that could get moved here, you know. I wasn't so much worried about that as I was getting the categories and then kind of looking, what are some of the top things? Like, for instance, what do you believe are the strengths of the district? It's obvious we have quite a few strengths. Our staff overwhelmingly came through, and that came through with the board, with your input and feedback. And I would say the community felt that in the business, people that I interviewed felt that just as much as anybody. The offerings that we provide was another strength, and I felt that it was great and affirmative that in the top 3 is the professional development work that the district is focused on, you know, as far as a strength. Obviously, the community is up there. When you get to the second question, what are some of the areas for improvement? Attitudes, mindsets came in with communication as a top strength. A top area that we can focus on. And I think it's like that in every organization, especially when you're going through change and trying to keep pace with the changes going on in your business. What do you believe are the priorities of the district is always interesting, because some people, it's what they believe, and some of them think it's what the district believes. But I thought it was positive that an overwhelming majority believed that academic and student achievement is a priority for our district, because that's what we're all about, is improving teaching and learning. So to me, that I felt that was affirmative. From your perspective, what do you see as 1 or 2 key issues or challenges? It's a similar question, but did you notice in the responses, it's all over the board, and there isn't one thing that's dominating? You know, the budget, enrollment, improving student achievement outcomes, those are the top 3. What people are perceiving as the top 2 or 3 issues or challenges facing the district: the budget, enrollment, and improving student achievement.
But in reality, of course, when you drill down into any of those, there's would be a lot of room for discussion. And how, I mean, the budget, what does that mean? That we should increase, decrease?
Well, it means that, you know, we're going through declining enrollment to a certain degree.
So that's a concern.
Well, we levied, is this the second or first year, is it the second year in a row, Carl, that we've levied to the max? And it's looking like we're gonna continue to levy to the max. You know, so I think financial challenges, as we continue, reductions may be necessary. We're now at the revenue limit, the ability to look at the big picture of the budget, and we seem to have budget issues. Some don't seem realistic. You know, it was a tie, that and enrollment. So how can we continue to raise the bar of academic success for all students? Overwhelming. People said, we're working on that right now. To me, that was an affirmative. We're heading in the right direction, the district, with the work that's going on. How do we continue to improve our college career readiness efforts, continue with Waupaca Works? We've got a great program in place. So I'm not seeing like we're coming in, you know, a new set of eyes, different perspectives, that there's some big things that got to change. We're not seeing things that really got to change. It's maybe more concentrated focus on what we already have going, and continue to just get better at what we're already doing. Just some initial, I only budgeted a couple minutes here, guys, so now I'm off my game.
Blame it on the singers.
I'm sorry, Mark, that takes a couple minutes off of you.
Mark's going to be.
Are you finished? I mean,
Unless you have
with
questions.
that, but I do have a question. No. I wanted to go back. There was a big article, maybe you read it and others did too, about lockdowns. You mentioned lockdown. It was in the paper the other day, the Post-Crescent, and it was a wire service article about lockdowns that are happening, or should, when they happen, schools and parents should be notified that they're going to happen, especially at the elementary grade levels. Are we doing that?
Are we notifying them? I don't know, it's a good question.
Because I'll tell you why. The article went in there because a lot of kids get frightened by that. So what a lot of schools have done, have said, you know, January 15th, we're gonna have a lockdown, so everybody knows that because it's really not about the fear factor, it's about the process for what you're gonna do in case of, it's like a tornado drill, right? We announced there's gonna be a tornado drill and kids go through, but we know there's really not a tornado on that day. So the article was talking about the fear factor for elementary, that in the past, some of those were done without notice, and kids were frightened by it.
We are giving notice, so.
Okay,
Jody just confirmed that an infinite gas blast went out today for the WLC.
Good. Yeah, I think that's kind of the trend now, what we need to do.
Well, the concern is whether or not some read that, but we are communicating.
Yeah, good.
Anything else? Okay, that moves us on to monitoring. Got the school report cards,
Yes.
early release Wednesdays.
Yeah, so I wanted to try to be brief here on some pretty weighty topics. I apologize, but hopefully by giving it to you guys in advance, you had some time to go through the presentation. So hopefully today will be more of a summary, but Learning Target is really about understanding the connection between the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction school report cards and the work that our teachers are doing in our early release Wednesdays. So the school report card plus our committed to excellence framework is what the next 10 minutes will be about. And hopefully I can improve your knowledge on both. There'll be a quiz at the end, Mr. Ferris. I'll make
Okay,
sure.
good.
Take notes.
That's right. So please realize that this DPI issue is this is a 27-page document about understanding your school report cards. I'm trying to get it done in roughly 9 slides with us this evening. So I'm gonna make sure we stay at the right level of information, I guess. But realize just some key factors that, first of all, this year's report cards are based off last year's student performance. Okay, so they're always lagging data as far as that. And there's some areas that, 4 priority areas of the school report cards are based off. Number 1 is student achievement. So how well did our students in grades 3 through 11 do on ELA tests and math tests, just those grades. They're looking at growth, so measuring from year to year progress, how much do your students grow. They're also looking at gaps. What kind of performance gaps do you have between different subgroups of students that exist within a school and within a district? They also look at on-track or post-ready, or post-secondary readiness, and that varies by building, obviously. There is also a student engagement indicator, they call it, which is really focused on chronic absenteeism and dropout rates when applicable. Okay? So 4 primary areas plus kind of this wild card of student engagement. We'll talk about why that's a wild card here in a second. What's important to know is that each of the 4 priority areas are scored using a 0 to 100 scale. These scores are then combined using a weighting scheme to create an overall accountability score. You can't just take 25%, 25%, 25%. There's much more of a complex weighting scheme, as they call it. You can also have what's called deductions based off your student engagement indicators, so chronic absenteeism, dropout rates, if they fail to meet statewide expectations. So let's go through the school report card a little bit more in detail. This is what everybody's used to seeing. So again, here you have your 4 priority areas: student achievement, district growth, closing gaps, and on-track readiness secondary. Again, for student achievement and growth, it's really based off the Ford exam for grades 3 through 8 and the ACT for grade 11. New in this report card is that 9th and 10th grade scores from the Aspire, the ACT Aspire, were also included in the report card. Down below they have the student engagement indicators. So what you're going to see is this is our district report card for Waupaca. And I've obviously covered up different parts of it to draw your attention to exactly what we're talking about. But this is our scores, and you can see we had no deductions. So the other part that's a little bit interesting and that's also new is that the weight of 2 of the priority areas, student achievement and growth, depends on your percent of economically disadvantaged students. So there's a sliding scale up to a point, depending on, again, your percent of students who are economically disadvantaged. And the reality of it is the higher the percentage of students you have that are economically disadvantaged, the greater the weight goes towards growth versus student achievement. So think of student achievement as everybody being able to, cross this line or whatever the case would be. Whereas growth is where did you start at the beginning of the year, where did you end when we gave this test. And so the greater your percentage of students who are struggling financially, they're going to put more weight on growth than they are on that general student achievement. And that's new for this report card. So you can see in our district overall, 23% of our school report card came from student achievement, 27% came from growth, 25% came from gaps, and 25% came from on-track post-secondary readiness. If you were to compare this to another district, the top two percentages would be different than our percentages. And again, that difference is due to percentage of students who are on free or reduced lunch.
Is there a point at which, depending on where you are on student achievement, that district growth may be to a degree in conflict with, I mean, once you get high enough, is it harder to move ahead on that bar, or is that not really a consideration?
Traditionally speaking, yeah, and probably more reality. In theory, we'd like to still be able to say just because you're here with your student achievement doesn't mean your growth can't accelerate at the same percentage. But I would say, for the most part, our systems aren't built to do that level of growth. So there's some different challenges there. But referring back to Mr. Sari's kind of that information he had shared earlier, some of that input, you know, if you read some of those comments and notes, there's a lot of talk about maintaining that advanced AP coursework, or that higher level rigorous coursework is too. Comprehensive school means you have programs built for every student. The reality of that is that's expensive, because you're going to have smaller classes here, bigger classes here, and trying to meet all those needs. So you're trying to find the right balance. But as a district, I think we're doing a great job of that.
Just an aside, our previous superintendent, Dr. Peschel, always said, at least openly many times, that not only the money that we receive from the state, but also the score should always tie in an economic low and advantage, or lower economic student ratio. I'm glad to see that they finally, he was prophesizing that years ago, because it has such a difference. It's so hard to compare us with other school districts when certain ones are very high-end economically and others are not. And he made that a point of saying that many, many times. It's good to see that he was right on there.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with my experiences where I've been. And every year, though, the state report card gets tweaked to try to make it a more realistic measure, right, which then makes it harder to compare from year to year as well. Yeah. And so it's a little bit different. But you know, we're heading in the right direction. That's the bottom line. Another new thing to the state report cards is that the test participation rates are no longer part of the student engagement indicators, so you can't get deductions for a low test percentage participation. Which you're already potentially getting dinged for absenteeism. So if they're not attending, they're probably not going to be taking the test at the same rate. So it was like a double negative. So I'm glad to see they've made this adjustment too. However, I'll be interested to see how this pans out, because I can see some school districts maybe playing a game here about who takes their test and who doesn't. I mean, we're not going to play the game. Everybody needs to take the test, period. And there's makeup times for those who miss it the first time or the second time. Some of the rest of the report card is really about, here's the district information that's provided to the state through various, they call them snapshots, taken throughout the school year. So at any one given day, this may not be exactly our demographics, but understand over the course of the year, that is our demographics. And then down here below, you remember a couple years ago, we had this outlier indicator. That's if a school or a district's overall accountability score changes by 10 or more points within a given year. So you had a tremendous jump because of X, Y, or Z, or you had a tremendous decline because of something that happened as well. They would just put a little caret as an asterisk there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the school report card in a nutshell.
So even though you said that we're tweaking, not we, DPI is tweaking it, and it's more difficult to compare, how does this compare in your eyes to our previous numbers?
Well, that's a great question, Mr. Fair. It's almost like you looked at the tag. Here's 4-year data of comparisons, exactly what you're asking me. You set me up, I appreciate it.
That's right.
So off to the left is, of course, the school year. And going across, you have the 4 priority areas: the student achievement, the growth, the closing the gaps, on track and post-secondary readiness, and you have your overall scores. The green means we're above the state average. So just looking at the WLC in 18-19 student achievement, our score there was 75.2, state average score was 65.7. Red means we're below the state average. So growth, WLC was on average 56.5, where the state score was a 66. So that's where the difference between the colors are. So overall, we're trending in the right direction. There's work to be done. I mean, we're always reviewing and analyzing and trying to work a little bit differently.
Mark, correct me though, we have to be careful on that, some of those like growth. I mean, if you've got all the kids at a high bar, there's only so much growth that can occur.
Yeah, so what they do is, and how it's been explained to me, Dale, is they compare kids across the state to get to that growth factor. So if you were a student in the Madison area school district that scored a 74, and I'm a student in Waupaca that scored a 74, and the next year you took the test, you scored a 94, and I scored 104, my growth score factor to the school report card would be greater than your growth factor and your add to your school report card. So they're really looking to compare, trying to even and level the playing field across the state. Does that make sense as far as that growth measure? And I understand what you're saying too, but to try to mitigate that, what they are doing is they are trying to compare how much is a student growing and who scored in that bandwidth or that same score roughly as compared to how did your students score who had that same initial score.
Right, I guess what I'm looking at is, and this might be wrong, what if all these kids are at 104 and you can only get 110 on the test? Then growth is going to drop way off.
Right.
You know, and so you're going to be below the state average because you can't grow that far. You know, because you're already there.
Yeah.
And if we look at the WLC in particular, I mean, they were very high many times. So maybe that below the state average is because a lot of the kids are already there. There's not a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, I'm always going to say, I'm going to be optimistic and say there's still things we could be doing.
I agree.
To look at that and making sure that how we allocate our resources is after the right ends.
And are these overall state score numbers all based off of 100%?
It's not percent, but a score, 0 to 100, yeah.
0 to 100. Okay, and so what we see here are averages of all school districts in the state. Is that correct?
No. I'm sorry, just so I'm understanding. So this column.
I'm saying the state score average, right?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yes.
So within each one of those areas. Now, and I'll get to this in a minute. Mind you, they break down student achievement score and growth in terms of ELA and math. I'm using the one-page school report card. Every school gets a 10-page school report card. So the amount of digging, the amount of data, the amount of turning over again, which is why there's a 27-page how to interpret your school report card. Different way to look at things. So there's much more behind the numbers, I guess.
And I know I chatted with you briefly about this, but even though Chain or the CEC now has students in grades 3 through 5, this first year that they were in operation, which was last year, wouldn't show up on a school report card. Is that
No,
the case?
and you also need 20 students per grade before they'll show up. So with the 18-to-1 ratio out there,
Yes.
it's feasible that at this current junction, they may never have a school report card score.
But is there data in the data the district gets related?
Yeah. Yep. There's different data sets that we can compare.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that there would be a way to include them then when we're getting a look at the whole district
Mhm.
or whatever charter school. Thank you.
This is big picture stuff. This
Yeah.
is the 50,000-foot lens, so to speak. So, some factors to keep in mind. You know, again, I shared the one-page report card. Each school gets a 10-page and much more detailed school report card. It's not for public release. Achievement, growth, closing gap scores are used on the school report card. Only looks at ELA and math, and it's only given to students in grades 3 through 11. And I just want to remind you, this is one point of data. And one point of data never defines our students or the work that our staff does. We know that. But there are takeaways, right? In general, our students are performing better than the state average in ELA and math. Although we're performing better, our students don't always grow as much as other students or like students in the state of Wisconsin. Something for us to look into. And again, due to this inconsistent growth, I would say that we have the gaps between our different subgroups that are not closing at a rate that's as fast or comparable to other gaps in the state. So opportunities would rely with growth and gap closing for us. So now I'm going to connect this to what's happening on early release Wednesdays, because the two are very interrelated. So roughly 3 years ago, the district updated its vision to being committed to excellence in education, and to guide us in achieving our new vision, the Committed to Excellence framework, formerly known as the MLSS or MTSS structure, was put into place. And so this is really important to understand, because this is really our driving work, or the driving factor behind what we're doing on Wednesday. So I kind of broke this down, took some liberties here, and said we really got 3 main focus areas and 5 supporting areas. 3 main focus areas: curriculum, assessment, instruction. That is the heart of any school district, right? It's about that teaching and learning aspect. Now, in order to achieve these 3 focus areas, we must create and sustain the 5 supporting areas. And I would argue that the existence of these 5, circled here in orange, supporting areas, can make or break whether we achieve the curriculum, the instruction, and the assessment. We have to have relationships formed. We have to have safe and collaborative culture. We must have collaboration. We must have engagement. We must have commitment. Once we get those things, then we can start talking about the guaranteed and viable curriculum. Then we can start having conversations about effective teaching in every classroom. Then we can talk about our assessments high quality and common and consistent and aligned. Okay? So what are we doing to make sure that we get these 5 supporting areas, make them real? Okay? So I just created a list. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's a list to get us to realize we have done a lot of things over the last several years to make this a reality. One, first and foremost, I would say we hire only the best. We work together as a team to build that ownership and that engagement and that commitment by including staff and community, students, parents on our hiring committees to make sure we hire the best. We modified our workday to increase that collaboration time. We know that effective teaching is not done in isolation. We match our philosophy with our structure to help with that. You know, we've done a lot more surveys the last several years than what we've ever done in the past. And gathering that input, that information obviously increases ownership, especially when it's communicated and shared. It helps build trust and engagement and relationships as well. Put an emphasis on building relationships between all groups of our employees and those that we serve. We've created building level instructional leadership team positions. Again, shared leadership to increase that engagement and that commitment. Created the Waupaca First Institute. We invest in those who we believe have the greatest impact on our students. That obviously shows a high level of commitment from us to our staff. We've maintained and increased staffing while our student enrollment has been flat or even decreased. So again, we as an organization recognize the increasing diversity of student needs and the hard work that our staff is doing, right? By having that marriage, that commitment of allocating our resources as we have, hopefully everybody understands and sees that this is a recognition of commitment and hopefully increase our engagement. What about our 3 main focus areas? Well, the heart of this matter really comes out of the multi-year teaching and learning plan that we went over in April. So I'm not going to spend too much time going over it here, but really phase 1, guaranteed and viable curriculum. What do we want all students to know and be able to do? Phase 2 is that common assessment focus. So how do we know when our students have met what we've asked them to learn? 3 is how do we measure effective classroom effective teaching, in every classroom? And then 4 and beyond is really that continuous improvement cycle. Where are we at with achieving this? Our elementary folks and the CEC will begin phase 1 of this journey starting the 2nd semester, beginning with ELA and related arts. I would say that our middle school began this journey a few years ago, even before the multi-year teaching and learning plan even existed. And most of the teams are deep into phase 1, some of them are deep into phase 2, and others realize we got to go back and revisit some things. That continuous growth mindset is there and it's proven there. And at the high school, began this journey in roughly about 2018, again, before that real 3-dimensional plan was put into place, a 4-phase plan was put into place. And I would say all teams are in phase 1 of that plan right now. And again, this growth and this increase of student achievement doesn't come easy. There's struggle to this, and there's a lot of coordination that has to happen. There's a lot of collaboration and engagement that has to happen. And our teachers are doing those things. It's great to see. So what supports have we put into place to assist staff in achieving these areas? Well, we've given each teacher a couple of books. Number 1 is the Clarity for Learning book, which by the start of the 2nd semester, all teachers will have read across the district. Really lays the philosophical groundwork for that multi-year teaching and learning plan. Secondly, every teacher has a copy of Grading for Impact. which parts of it will have been read and parts of it will continue to be read by teachers as they continue down this journey. It reinforces some of the philosophical work, but much more on the nuts and bolts. So when teachers are actually getting into the work, this is a great book for them to go back to as well. Again, the multi-year teaching and learning plan is a document. I don't want to say it's a 4 or 5 year journey, but it's a several year journey that helps guide the direction we're going, provides that solid foundation for people to have reference to go back to as well. We have our MLSS coaches that continue to work to ensure that when staff are ready to do the work, they're there to guide them in the work. They help them to help guide some of the conversations that can be difficult as well. Other supports. For the last couple of years, we've used a diagnostic assessment called the iReady in grades K-8. It's a reading and math assessment, so you can see how it relates back to that school report card in terms of areas of focus. And it gives our staff valuable standards-based feedback to say, are we getting to the right standards and are our students performing to the level in which we expect them to at the right standards? And they do it 3 times throughout the course of the year, so it matches with kind of the instructional levels that the staff is working with students at. And here at the upper level grades, we developed the pre-ACT in 2018. We did it just to juniors. This past fall, we did it to all freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. Pre-ACT is a shortened ACT, which we're all familiar with. Enough that assesses student performance on the same standards that they're going to be assessed on in the ACT Aspire in grades 9 and 10 here in the spring, as well as the ACT. So we do these kind of diagnostic outside assessments to ensure that we're on the right progressions and we're on the right track internally before the students are actually taking them. Because when they take them in the spring, those are the scores that count towards that school report card. We don't want them to see those tests for the first time in the spring. We want to make sure that our curriculum, our assessments are aligned to what they're going to see. What else have we done? So again, for the past 3 years, the high school, we've done a good job of analyzing student score data from the ACT and pre-ACT. We're looking at replicating this level of analyzation with the middle school and elementary school. We just haven't gotten there yet, but we're looking at it. So last week, the high school teachers spent class time going over pre-ACT results. And so here's this kind of breakdown of the week. So Monday, the kids received their answer sheet and their test booklets. And they went to all their classes like normal, but in math class, the teacher specifically went over that math test on the pre-ACT with all the students in math classes. And this, of course, happened after we had all of the high school teachers in with us for a couple of hours analyzing how well did our kids do on the math test. So the math teachers were prepared to look at what standards did our kids perform lowest at by grade level. Tuesday, when the kids went to science, they did the same thing with the science test. Wednesday, they did the reading test and social studies. Thursday, they did the English test in English class. And then on Friday, they actually got their cover sheet to show how well they actually scored in each one of those areas. We separated their answer sheet from the cover sheet because we wanted to make sure that the kids were really into it for the week. And then it was great because Mr. Rabowski sent some communications home and some positive parent feedback and positive student feedback to the point of, hey, my son was, or daughter was sick on Tuesday. When are they going to have time to go over that science test with their science teacher? So that was good to hear. And again, this is our first year of doing this kind of review of it with our students and our parents. So hopefully it's increased student engagement and family engagement with this sort of assessment, this learning opportunity for kids. Wrapping things up here, if we're not 100% clear on what the state expects our students to know and be able to do, along with how the state is going to assess our kids, we're really not doing our kids any justice. So we want to make sure that our staff is well versed on those 2 areas, which is really, really important. And then, again, this goes back to what we're doing on Wednesdays, hopefully, which is creating that greater clarity for our students through improved agreements and consistencies about what our students should know and be able to do. And if we do that, we're going to make our students better people. We'll help them socially, emotionally, behaviorally, and of course, academically. And now for your quiz. Did you learn more about the state report card?
Is there a right or wrong answer to this?
As long as it's growth-minded, we're good. Hopefully you learned more about the state report card. Hopefully you learned more about what's happening on Wednesday. And hopefully you understand that connection between the state report card, the results we get from there, from a high level perspective, and also what we're doing on Wednesdays. Questions?
I'd like to go back to page 11 in the slide deck for just a moment, which was the page that had the different schools with the green and red.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I've got to go back up to it. You had mentioned that the state does tweak, if you will, potentially from year to year, how they develop the scores. What communications do they have with the school districts so that we have an understanding of what changes they may have made and whether or not that potentially had an impact of what our ultimate scores may have been?
Yeah, so I attend monthly meetings with people out of CISA who attend state meetings. They bring that information back as best as they can, as well to kind of give us the heads up. There's also a period of time between when the state says, here's the preliminary release of information. You have roughly 30 days to make an inquiry before it goes public, so to speak, release. So if there's any data that looks way off or you have concerns or questions about it, you can always question that. And the state does put out all sorts of documentation if you're looking for more reading.
It seemed curious to me under the growth column for the state average, that happens to be 66 in every box, whereas you would normally think that there might be some variation on a state average. Does that seem to make any sense to you?
Yeah,
Or could you explain that to me potentially if it does make sense?
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, other than that's the number that they're focusing on, that's the goal that they're after. I don't. Yeah, when I did that too, and I double checked, so I have all the printouts here. And I double checked on that one. And, let me seek some clarity on that one.
Then with the column for on track and post-secondary readiness, are those two distinct and different things? Because on track to me might make a little more sense in the WLC than a third grader with post-secondary readiness.
Yeah, so for elementary, I believe it's third grade. It's based off third grade ELA scores. In middle school, it's based off 8th grade ELA scores. And high school, it's leaving me right now. Graduation and attendance rates.
And you'll be available for additional questions at another time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes.
I'm sure you've heard people say this, I certainly have, who complain about the level, the frequency or the amount of time testing takes, or say things like, we're being forced to teach to the test. How do you respond to something like that last comment?
Well, if the tests are high quality and they're valid, and how are these assessments being used to provide opportunities or put up barriers for kids, we got to know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the ACT, let's just take it for example. I mean, a student, depending on what they want to do after high school, the ACT is probably factored in there somehow, some way, some shape or form.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're not versed with understanding what's on that test and how they're going to be tested on that, then I think we've got some issues. The other part of it is something like the ACT, for example, is a timed test. I think there's situations in all of our lives when we have to work under time constraints. So I would argue that that's a bad thing to mimic that to some extent within our current classroom. Mm-hmm. Or some of the logic and the thinking or the connectedness, the comparing, the contrasting that's required of some of these assessments. I think those are skills we would want all kids to know and be able to do. And so call it teaching the test or call it being well educated.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But back to that ACT, that was based off the college readiness standards.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they kind of almost, now they don't align, but they're a little shorter version of the Common Core, which follow our standards anyway. So the ACT at this level basically is still testing on what we feel is viable curriculum of what we're trying to set our curriculum at as a Common Core with the college readiness standards. So I know when we were teaching, the college, or the Common Core was, for high school, wasn't written very good in math. Let's face it, they kind of said, all right, we got it all the way through 8th grade, okay, high school, you teach the rest. That's basically the way it was written, we were told. So what we started focusing on was college readiness standards, which was the ACT. And that seemed to do us well.
Yeah.
And are you still looking at the college readiness standards?
Yeah, so phase one of the multi-year teaching and learning plan is it should be a 13-step process to ensuring that we're in alignment here. And so really step one is, as if we were all high school math teachers, we would need to agree on what set of standards we're going to be laying our foundations for. And so the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards have come a long way. And so some of them have adopted just the Common Core state standards. And so we would have to agree that, okay, we're going to take the Common Core state standards and maybe we're going to look at the college readiness standards as well. And that's going to be our standards in which we're going to develop our algebra, geometry, algebra 2, pre-calc courses, and so forth and so on from. We're really putting it back into the hands of our teachers, with the only caveat is they all got to agree. So if there's 7 of us that teach high school math, we have to agree on these are the set of standards we're going to work from, first of all. Second of all is, there's some studies out there that say if you're going to teach all the set of standards, you need more than 180 days to do it. You probably need more like 260 to 300 days per school year to teach the standards of the Common Core for English and math, for example. You don't have that time. We're not going to get that time. So that means we have to prioritize what standards we, again, as that team, believe are the most important for our students. So we call those our priority standards. Then we got to figure out how we're going to assess those priority standards. That doesn't mean we're going to ignore the other standards, but we may not put as much emphasis or time into teaching those standards because they're more supporting standards than the ones that we really want to focus on, which are those priority standards. Then sometimes that priority standard, that standard language, we need to break those standards down because they may have 3 or 4 components within one standard. So we got to break those down into those learning targets. So a lot of that is embedded in that teaching and learning plan, and there's steps that we've asked teachers to follow and go through to ensure that the standards that they're choosing are the standards that are being assessed. So for example, in grades 3 through 8, we provided the principals with what we call a heat map over the last 2 years in the forward exam that tell us what standards were assessed and how frequently those standards were assessed and how many points they were given. So that our teachers know that, okay, these are the standards that we've chosen that we in Waupaca believe are the most important. Now, let's compare that to what the state says. And if the state says, standard 3.2, for example, is really important, we've assessed it 3 times, and we didn't put it as a priority standard, we put it as a supporting standard, we probably need to go back and relook at that because the state is saying, it's important. That's why it's over here being assessed 3 times in the last 2 years.
Well, and it's interesting to look at the different disciplines and see the number of standards varies.
Yeah.
Doesn't it, fairly significantly sometimes?
Absolutely. So that's where, again, the work on Wednesday afternoons is really critical to ensuring that our kids are getting taught the right material. And it's not me working in isolation in my algebra class and Lori working in isolation in her algebra class. We don't want it to be dependent on the teacher. We're not removing that teacher touch because everybody learns and teaches differently, and that's fine, that's awesome, that's great. But at the end of the day, what we expect our kids to know and be able to do should not be based off which teacher they have, or how they get scored on their assessments, or where they end at the end of a semester, or at the end of the school year. Those things need to be consistent. What happens between the start of the unit and the end of the unit, as long as it's effective, make it work. Make it work.
Other question?
Yeah, I have a question. And it actually comes off of Ron's handout here on listening and learning. When I was looking through this afternoon, I was sort of taken aback by the question about greatest challenges, and it kind of fits into our Wednesdays a little bit because the comments here were that we're kind of in a silo mentality. We need to unify the district to one organization, moving from buildings being independent to more unified. There shouldn't be competition between buildings, silos exist, isolation, etc. Are we doing anything on Wednesdays to help to mitigate those problems? And I'll use the English department as an example. It's 6 or 8 teachers getting together every Wednesday. It's great here at the high school. But does that create a kind of an isolationism in the sense that we're so focused on what we have to do, we don't really care what math has to do? I mean, You see what I'm saying? And it seems like that's a concern here, because these are people, who I don't know who, but I assume they're staff members who voiced that.
Sure. So great question. So two things. One, building by building, principals do all staff activities as well on Wednesdays. We ask that at least 50% of the time be divvied up into this work of curriculum guaranteed and viable first. Once they get to a point in phase one where they've mapped out their department work, and part of the expectation is then they do meet between buildings to have that conversation. But both buildings have to have that mapping work done, so the conversation is around what is it we expect all kids will be able to do. I want to see that alignment, that progression. They are the content experts, so I would expect that there would be a conversation, let's say if it's going to be between English, that you'd probably look at from a 7th and 8th grade focus all the way up to a 9th and 10th grade focus. Right. To have the 7th and 8th grade teachers know what's going on in the 11th and 12th grade English would be nice, but I would see that maybe as a conversation down the road. Right now, we need to make sure that 8th to 9th, 7th to 9th, right. That bridge is really is there. I know there's been some conversations that we're getting close to some departments having their areas mapped out to have those cross-building conversations.
So would they physically come together?
Yeah, yeah, and that's a beautiful thing with the change we made in early release Wednesdays to allow that to happen. Because remember last year, especially at the middle school, there was a lot of interruptions because so many students stayed behind and they had student responsibilities, student supervision responsibilities. So yeah, so I would hope by the end of the year for sure, if not all, most middle school and high school content areas would have crossed. And there has been some, especially in some of our areas where there's smaller numbers of staff, like the art or the music department, for example.
Questions? Thank you very much. I'm sure there will be questions as we get further into some of the scoring of the individual areas. With that, we'll move on to the reports on meetings attended and school visits. Does anyone have anything that they wish to report this evening? Okay.
As you heard with the Magical Singers here, I was the king and my wife was the queen at the Magical Feast, the 26th, I think, annual Magical Feast. And I know in some of our retreat sessions, we had talked about the importance of different programs. I know one that came in particular was music. You know, we talked about how music has been a very good program here. And working with those kids, I'll tell you that group is one of the best PR secrets that we have in this school district. I know right now that they are on the Madrigal gig list here, and they're going to probably do 20 different gigs now or more around the community, and all these people are going to see them. You wouldn't have believed the attendance was amazing at that Madrigal dinner. The variety of people that were in there of all walks of life. And people I don't even know that came in there. They didn't have any kids in the district, many of these people. They're gray hairs, they're older than me, and they come probably every single time, and they just love it. And it was an amazing to see that diversity. But this group is a very, very diverse group of kids. You know, I know a bunch of these kids still, just because, you know, I haven't, I'm just a couple of years removed from retiring. You know, listening to some of their comments, one girl said, I lived for these 2 days. I lived for these 2 days. And when they say live for these 2 days, they come in on Friday night and they set that up, and then they have to set that whole, they have to have it on Sunday. And then the Madrigal dinner is on Saturday night and on Sunday. And after that was done, and they were there all day long. They were here probably until midnight, cleaning that place up with a smile on their face. I mean, they went to the end. It meant so much for them. And I can't tell you about the confidence and leadership. One gal said, just her first year, one of the girls, first year she was in it, she said, you know, being part of this Madrigal group changed my life. She goes, I didn't want to come to school this my senior year. I didn't see any purpose to come here. I don't like it here. And that gave her a sense of purpose and confidence. And it was her gem that she's going to hold up and say, this is what I've learned in Waupaca High School. The confidence and the leadership to go on and achieve greater things just because this program had allowed her to do that. But it's a very interesting group of kids. And I know that, there's a lot of musical kids in this district that are great, but that is a very special group, and we should be proud of them. So you heard how amazing they were. And you know what? They were awful. As good as you may have thought that they were here, I heard them the last 3 days. They were even better. They can get better. They have good days and they have their off days a little bit, but it was an amazing on Sunday night. And I know Mike was there, he and Joe was there that came, and I know Pat saw the thing, and you saw how out of the, how many of those lines do you think were written, and how many of those lines do you think were improvised that night?
Well,
what do you think? Give me a percentage of it.
I would think if you went Saturday night and then again Sunday, it'd be totally different. I think.
Yeah, it was different. It was different. But how many percent of the thing do you think was improvised?
Half, maybe.
What do you think?
I'm guessing half.
It's probably 80% of that show that you saw, or 85, was improvised. Only a small amount. So those kids, every time they took something off, and I think when the kid asked me a question, and I said, well, I said, well, in my kingdom they call it wassail, but you folks call it wassail. What is the correct pronunciation? And that was just an improv that I had. Did you see that all the court just jump and look at each other in just shock that I would call it wassail? I mean, just for the fact that they all improvised and they all did it just like this off the top of their head, it was a great experience. So.
Well, having your wife go out and lead them in dance was part of that.
Yeah, that was improv too. I know. They put me on the spot a couple times, and we put them on the spot, but it was great.
Thank you. Any other reports? We did not have specific visits assigned.
Yep. I know we didn't have specific, but I was supposed to go to the middle school 2 months ago and I didn't. So I went today and had a great visit, and I went to Mr. Herm's class, and they were talking about Native American, different tribes and things. So it was kind of fun. I was able to share some experiences that I had had on the Winnebago reservation with the young people, so that was awesome. And Mr. Kempford's science class, they were talking about minerals and diamonds. And Marianne Snyder's class, I was able to talk to the young people about books that they were reading, and they were learning about what motivates an author and how an author writes what they write and why they write what they write. So it was very interesting to see the young people not just reading the book, but analyzing how the author did what the author did. I went into the auditorium because I followed my ears, and the 6th graders were performing or practicing for their concert tonight, and they were doing some pretty intricate music. I was really amazed at what they were doing, and one of the songs just blew me away because it was the melody of several Christmas carols all being sung together, but while they were singing, they were doing the hand motions for the scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And I remember being back in high school when, the teacher would do this or whatever. These young people had learned that, and as they were singing the notes, they were actually doing the hand signs for those notes. And it was just like sign language. It blew me away. I thought, oh my Lord, these young people are incredible. So kudos to the music teacher for that. I went into one of the math classes, a brand new 6th grade teacher, and you'll have to help me, Laura, Miss Steele?
5th grade teacher, Still.
Still. So had a nice conversation with her, and the young people were so excited about her and her teaching, and so she was all gung-ho for Waupaca. And then as I was going through the hallways at the end, outside the PAC, I stopped and talked to some of the cooks, or the ladies that were cleaning up after lunch. and asked them how the food service thing is going, and they said they love it. They love being able to use their own recipes. They've seen an increase in what the students are eating, and some of their more popular things are coming back. And then the janitors were there too, so Sean and Kelly, so I talked with them, and they were getting school all spiffed off for the concert tonight. So it was a great visit there. It's just a really nice environment there, so thanks a lot.
Well, I'll go next. First of all, as Mark kind of gave us, I had a great time on Sunday night at the Madrigal dinner, and then another shout out Dale and I mentioned, or maybe it was not at the meeting, it was when we were just together. We did the improvisational, which was a great event. Mrs. Monica Reeves gets a lot of kudos for her class. That was a senior drama group. We had that a week or so ago, the improv. Which was the first, by the way, but it will continue hopefully next year. It was a great evening. I went in to see Mary Jo Barton and the LIVE program. I was supposed to go, I think, previously, like you. I didn't get there, so I went there and visited with them. It was always fun. I met Ms. Whittle. I don't know her first name.
Dana.
Dana, thank you. I hadn't met her before, and so I had a chance to meet her students. And Mary Jo's, we talked a lot about the different kinds of students, even though to me, they kind of all see the same, but there's cognitive and there's, other kinds of students there that I didn't. And she explained to me, and we talked a lot about the whole autistic spectrum and what that means. It was very interesting, and I found the students very interesting, and we chatted a lot. And then she reminded me that we're all invited for Friday, and hopefully we can come to that. But I'm always amazed when I go in to her program, and of course I've known her for years. She's such a dedicated woman, and I love going there. She always makes me feel so welcome as well, and introduces me to all her students, and we chat, which is always an adventure. So it was a great time. I enjoy it very much. Yeah, there's a lot of good things with people that we have done. Yeah,
because I had to go visit the LIVE program as well. That was for the last board meeting, but I was absent. And what I really like is how the community gets involved here and hiring her students, because I believe her students are 18 to 21-year-olds.
Yes.
yeah.
And the amount of community support with hiring the kids and the jobs that they're getting, and even our own school district hires them. I know years ago, I believe it was the LIVE program that started our cafe out here, or that, it was something like that.
Right.
And they still do something on that order where they deliver meals to people.
Yeah.
So.
She told me she has 6 this year, 6 students.
Right.
Mary Jo does.
And they deliver the meals. The night the improv, Mark, just to go back on what you were saying, I was a king 2 years ago for the Magical Dinner. Outstanding. Like you said, it was a lot of fun, always, everything, all the people participate. But then you come back and we went at that improv that night and watched those kids on stage, and somebody shouts out something from the audience and they did it. And it was just like if you went out to some, well, I don't know the quality of the New York clubs that have the improv, but it was pretty cool to see that.
Yeah.
And I hope that continues on. This Monday night, I've been invited to MC again the trivia contest. And in the past, we've had 6 teams of about 6 kids. So we have 36 kids come in at 7 o'clock. They write all the questions, one group of them from the student council. And then I'll ask the questions, and they'll be competing for prizes of $50 to $100 per team. So it's another good night for that. If you want to come and watch or develop your own team, come on in and see if you can answer some of the questions. Last year I got to sing a little bit of White Christmas, so I think I'm asked for an encore again. So, but
Are you trying to get more teams?
yeah, we're trying to get more teams in there.
Do you have to pay anything?
No, it's no entry fee. It's all free, and it starts at 7 o'clock, and we go to 8:30. And the kids have written some pretty good questions, pretty tough ones.
Is it all
Get to
pop
use
culture?
computers?
No, it's not. No computers, no phones, no anything. No, it's a variety of types of questions. So sometimes I try to give you a hint. But there's math questions, there's some science questions, but then just general questions out there. And Bing was on there for White Christmas, you know, so they do try to throw in some White Christmas.
So we have to be smarter than a
Christmas songs.
third grader?
Yeah, you better be.
We're not gonna
Some of these groups are pretty
that.
smart.
Would we be embarrassed?
No, but you come in and you get, every team has to put an answer in, and then you get points as to how many what other teams get for the points, whatever it was worth. So, and there's some kids that keep tally of the points. So it's a good night. It goes very quick.
It does.
So
Teams collaborate.
yes, they collaborate. They can have 4 to 5 members on a team, I think it is. But a lot of fun, and then there's goodies and stuff. I did go to the chain to see their project night. My son invited me into his classroom to see what was going on. Very, very, very impressive, those projects that the kids come up with. So now I know this month, the teachers are writing their projects. So he was explaining to me, my son had to give me his project before he took it into his students, because they're trying to model what is it that they expect of their kids. Because they've seen some of the projects being done and they're saying, yeah, they're lacking a little bit. They're sticking to all flashcard presentation with PowerPoint. So they're trying to show them some different ways to do presentation with paper and charts and diagrams. And so his is all on Christmas trees and where they came. So we got to sit for an hour and listen about Christmas trees this last Sunday. So his students are going to be able to hear that. But I think it's kind of a neat turnaround, and the teachers are trying to get their point across by modeling of what their expectations are. So if you haven't gone out there when they have those project nights, I know they always want to have more of an audience out there to see them. So very good. So that's just some of the things I attended.
Thank you.
And I also went to the project night. And I went last year too, and I do want to say that the kids' skill in making the presentations has increased. I'm just really so impressed by their level of poise and confidence and ability to answer questions at the end. And they're prepared to say, I don't know, I can get more information if they don't know, which I think is really great also.
And to add to that, Sandy, the support they give each other, the kids, because all the kids are watching their peers,
Yes.
and they help hand out papers, and they actually ask insightful questions to
Yes.
their peers.
Yes.
They're very supportive, very good culture out there of helping each other out.
It's very interesting. And I went to the Thanksgiving feast that the LIFT program did and saw a number of people there. Boy, that was great food, and it was fun. The students were really gracious and seemed pleased when we were pleased with the food. It was very nice, and I'm looking forward to Friday. I also did an off-site visit. I got a note, and Megan Sanders, the Governance Council President for the CEC, and Rhonda got a note from the Wisconsin Resource Center for Charter Schools saying, we're having a work day in Appleton on a couple days. We know this is short notice. Can any of you join us? And I contacted Ron to find out if there were any administrators who might be able to go. Turned out I was the only one who was able to attend, but it was wonderful. I went to the Kaleidoscope Academy, which is a middle school in Appleton. Fabulous school. Dr. Brandt, who's the principal, took us around, gave us a tour, learned a lot about their programs. We talked about security. They have a relationship with the Boys and Girls Club for early school programming for the students. The Boys and Girls Club actually has a satellite at the school, and they also do after-school programs. Just started thinking about things, how that might work in our district. Dr. Darlene Chambers, who is a nationally recognized expert in charter schools and has done a number of workshops, was there as well. And before I left, Ron said, oh, wish he could come. Would they ever come and talk with us here in Waupaca, meet here? And so we started exploring that, because Works does actually provide funding for consultation. So we'll see about that. In the meantime, Darlene Chambers is someone who can do like reviews of contracts, charter contracts, to make sure we have covered all the things that really need to be covered, including things like what happens if your charter school isn't doing well and you want your charter school, if things aren't going well, to know before the 5th year that you're not you're thinking of non-renewing, so spelling out a process, that's just an example of something we really don't have spelled out in our contract. So she will do that, and then I do want to work with you all and with Ron and administrators and with the CEC to find out what kind of questions what would you like to take away from a workshop that might be 4 hours long, or in the nature of a retreat, if we can do it.
Cindy, what grade levels was the Kaleidoscope school?
It's a middle school,
Middle school.
and I want to say it's 6th, 7th, and 8th. I'm sure my notes say that. They actually have some segments of the charter school that aren't charter because students are placed in those classes, and then it would have to be more of a magnet than a charter. But it was pretty extraordinary. It's project-based also, as our school charter is. They have in their contract, because Appleton has like 20+ charter schools, one of the stipulations is that they have the same student-teacher ratio. That's what they're given. It's 29-1 in Appleton. If they want a smaller ratio, then they have to trade. They have to not have something so that they can have more money for staff. Anyway, it was just really interesting to look at some of the things and how they operate. It was a terrific day.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will move on then to upcoming meetings. We do have on that section the board holiday gathering following tonight's meeting. December 19, board retreat at 1 o'clock. December 27, deadline for non-candidacy forms. January 7, deadline for declaration of candidacies. So January 14th, our next regular board meeting at 5:15 in this room. And finally, January 22, 3, and 4, the WASB State Convention. With that, we'll move on to Section C, which is the WASB resolutions, which were included in the packet.
And I'm the delegate for the board for the conference, for the delegate conference. I received a paper copy through the mail for that. And if anybody has any concerns, if you haven't looked at it, it's fine because it is until January. But if you have any concerns one way or the other on any of those resolutions, let me know and I'll be happy to make a note of it. If there's a discussion about it, I'll bring it up.
All right, very good, thank you. That moves us on to item D under Section 8, and that would be early graduation requests.
Yeah, this is an annual item that comes up. This year we have 14 students that we're recommending, that have requested, and we're recommending early graduation, approval for early graduation. Everybody has a plan. The counselors and the principals have met with each of them, and pretty excited for them.
I would move that we approve the early graduation of the 14 students that were outlined in the memo.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Remind me again, Mr. Sari, do these students then qualify if they choose to come through graduation in the spring?
I don't believe so. Well, they do? They can.
They can
Okay.
be serious.
We asked
Okay,
them.
you can.
Yeah, they can walk.
Make sure that we invite them.
Okay.
to be part of it.
I have a question. Does that affect our state aides at all when they
No.
retire early? Okay.
Other questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
I would move approval.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
I just would like to say, not to the, but I got my tax bill and I'm very happy about it. Okay? I just want to tell you.
What did you say the percentage was?
27% lower because of the Waupaca School District going down. I was like close to $800, something like that, $900 off of my taxes because of the budget, 27%. So, yeah, I don't know how that figured out, but that's what it said on the little line, 27%. So I was pretty happy.
Thinking them were the ones that passed through.
I'm just happier. I was very pleased to see it, but that's what it said on there, 27%.
I have a question on the consent agenda, only
less from last year.
for clarification. Sandy sent out a notice saying that there was a change on the consent agenda, but I couldn't quite figure out where the change was.
One of the new hires was taken off.
Okay, I went through it all again, and I thought I couldn't quite figure out what that was.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it was updated online right away, but I had already sent you out a paper, or via email,
Right.
the paper copy, so I thought I'd just email it.
Okay.
And I'll email it's corrected on mine.
Okay.
Anything else on the consent agenda? Roll call?
Pat Fair.
Aye.
Steve Hackett.
Aye.
Mark Polbisky.
Aye.
Sandy Robinson. Yes. Betty Mannion.
Yes.
Jeff Belt.
Yes.
Steve Johnson.
Yes. With that, I'll entertain a motion to turn into closed session.
Second.
Motion to move into adjourned session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 (1) to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and Wisconsin 19.85 (1) to consider financial, medical, social, or personal history to disciplinary data of specific persons. Preliminary consideration of specific personal problems or the investigation of charges against specific persons, which if discussed in public would likely have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations. Roll call.
Pat Fair.
Aye.
Steve Hackett.
Aye.
Mark Polbisky.
Aye.
Sandy Robinson. Yes. Betty Mannion.
Yes.
Jeff Belt.
Yes.
Steve Johnson.
Yes. With that, thank you everyone for your attendance this evening. For those that will be joining us at the holiday gathering, you can either wait in your cars listening to whatever radio station you wish, or head down to Simpson's and just let them know you're with our group.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We'll take it.
Are we passing this? No. But
You got to come to a meeting.
I know, right? It's been a minute.
Are you guys done singing? For,
Yep, that's almost done.
yeah. When did you do your last gig? January?
This Sunday, we went to Methodist churches. Well, 3 of them, not all 4.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
It is
I think so. I think my grandma
5:15,
does.
so we will get started.
Okay.
As to President's comments, I'll be brief. I had the opportunity to attend the presentation that the SAD group brought forward for the community on smoking, tobacco use, and vaping last evening. The statistics are alarming. I think we've all heard that in various venues before. Unfortunately, the attendance was not real strong. But the message was out, and hopefully the sessions that they had with the students were helpful and productive, and may stop some students from ever even trying. So with that, we'll go to the pledge, and I'm going to ask Mr. Tomaszewski to please lead us today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That, I will call the meeting to order. It's 5:16. Let the roll call reflect that the members of the board are present with the exception of Mr. Polbisky. Move to the approval of the agenda.
So moved. Oh,
Sandy?
I would, well, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda, if I could.
You may.
And that is to suggest, to move that we remove item Roman numeral 8A, the financial audit, from the agenda in order to allow more time for review, and that we bring it back to the secretary board.
Sandy, could you add B as well?
And B.
Because the report was kind of rolled into one, so if we table
Oh, 8.
8A, could we table B too, please?
I'd be happy to amend my
Your
suggestion.
amendment?
My amendment.
And why is that?
Yeah, why?
More time to review the audit
Oh,
before
okay.
it's.
We want to be
discussed
able to
and
track
presented.
back to some source data and make
Okay.
sure that we have things.
Yeah.
Are you thinking of having a finance committee meeting on that?
Possibly,
Okay,
possibly, but more than anything, this motion would just
take it off tonight.
take it off tonight
Okay.
and with the intent to have it in February.
Okay.
Sandy, that's an excellent idea. I read through that thing and thank you.
Okay.
You are very welcome. I hear a
Motion-
second.
Motion to approve the agenda with the change of removing or tabling item 8, both sections A and B, with thanks from Mr. Hackett. Is there a second?
Betty had a second.
Doesn't matter.
There is- Okay,
Yes.
is that to the motion or to the thanks?
It's both.
To both, okay, very good. Okay, very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Public comment. Do we have anyone from the public that wishes to address the board this evening? There being none, we'll move on to the approval of the amendments. We'll start with the December 10th, 2019 expulsion hearing, the minutes which were provided to the board. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Motion and second. Mr. Hackett.
Steve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And then the December 10th regular board meeting minutes.
I would move approval of the December 10th regular board meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll move on to communications.
This week is proclaimed by our state superintendent of public instruction as Adult School Crossing Guard Recognition. So I just want to recognize that. Coming up next week, actually, January 13th through the 17th. Thank them for their work. And then donations. Okay, we've had 6 donations. For Mr. Shannon Mitchell to the WHS Transportation Technology Program. We had 3 from Mrs. Sandy Robinson to WLC, CEC, and the middle school. And then from the Waupaca Mobile Travel Center to the WLC kindergarten classes. And finally, Mr. Dennis Tim to the Chain Animal Care Study Program. We thank them for their generous donations. Under District Administrative Report.
Before we go on to
Yep.
that, is there a motion to accept those?
A motion to accept with our gratitude.
Motion to accept with gratitude. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. On to District Administrator's report. Now that I'm catching up to you.
Okay. We intended to have that 100-day plan summary and recommendations for this month in January. However, we decided to put it off till next month. We received the school perception survey data here recently, and we want to incorporate some of that information into our recommendations. And this may require a special board meeting, actually. I'll talk about that in a minute here. Another important thing that I want to point out is that each building is now in the process of either beginning their first safety team meeting, or they will be shortly convening their individual building safety teams. Matt Vassar, our building and grounds coordinator, is organizing this and coordinating, working with each of the principals and creating an agenda with them and ensuring that there's some consistency between all of the buildings. One of the first items that they will be addressing, besides the doors when they're unlocked and when they're locked and the kind of supervision that should take place and not propping doors, will be the outcomes of the security audit that we received last month. Last month we had a team from the Wisconsin School Safety Coordinators Association come in and each give recommendations for each building. So we're going to work on that. It's going to take quite some time. Then our plan is to reconvene the Community School Safety Committee that some of you participated in, and each of the buildings will then report back to our committee the work and the progress that we have accomplished. we're going to need to schedule some committee meetings over the next 4 weeks, and at least one additional retreat. And so, I don't know if you have your calendars with you, but we need a finance committee meeting to address the audit questions. I know Sandy had some audit questions. And I'm suggesting Monday, February 3rd at 1. Does that seem like something that we could do?
Can you give us an idea on timing for these meetings? I mean, do you have any idea, is this going to be a long meeting? Or?
I'm hoping, Carl, what do you think, an hour?
I would say maximum.
Sandy, how about you?
You're not asking me that.
We try to, I really like them to be an hour.
I think that can be addressed in an hour's time.
Yeah, okay.
Personnel,
I'm sorry, Ron, could you repeat the date?
sure,
and
the
time
finance,
you're talking about?
we're suggesting Monday, February 3rd at 1 o'clock. Personnel, we would like to have a personnel meeting to talk about support staff salary. So we're talking about the secretaries and the custodians. And we'd like to do that on Wednesday, February 5th at 1. Last month, during our retreat, the board gave me information requesting a special meeting to talk about expulsion data and updates and where we're at. I met with the core administrative team. So we're looking at having a student services committee meeting. This would be in closed session for Wednesday, February 19th at 1 o'clock.
So February 3rd was February 3rd was 1 o'clock.
Yep. So far, they're all at 1. February 3rd was finance. February 5th is personnel. February 19th is the student services regarding expulsion data and updates. I would like, we kind of put our collective commitments on hold until after the WASB convention next week. So I'm hoping that we could just have a retreat, maybe an hour, to finish the collective commitments, because we'll have finished the sessions that we wanted to attend at our WSB conference, and I'm suggesting Friday, January 31. Friday, January 31. What about Friday the 30th?
January 31 or February 31?
January.
No. My son gets his white coat. He writes 29. I'll be away 31st.
Can we do it in conjunction with one of the other meetings?
If it's only going to be an hour.
Possibly.
How about if with that Monday, the February 3rd, that'd be the 31st.
Right after the audit. I mean, if I
Or even
was-
before, if it was at noon, whatever.
Could be.
Or if the personnel meeting is only an hour?
Either one of those.
What about with, well, this one may take more than 60 minutes. That 100-day plan, it's 14 pages, but the last 4 pages are the ones that we would be discussing. The first 10 are kind of just more informational of what I've taken away. And I'm suggesting Friday, February 21 at 1.
Oh, okay, wait. This is different than the retreat.
This would be a retreat.
Oh, okay.
This would be a special retreat for the board. And I'm hoping as many of the core team would be available as well on that day.
Okay, but this is different than the retreat that you're thinking on January 31st?
Correct.
Okay.
And
So
that-
we're scrapping the 31st one right now?
Temporarily.
Okay, we're going, okay, got it, following that.
Okay.
Was that a 1 o'clock as well on the 21st?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, everything's at 1 so far.
Okay, so what date is the 21st on?
Friday, 21st.
Friday?
I mean, we could do it in the morning that day too, if you wanted, if there was a conflict.
Friday? Yeah.
Friday, the 21st? You can make that?
In the morning?
You want to do 10 o'clock?
Wait a minute. Wait, that one's say February 21st one, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I can do that one.
10 o'clock?
Yeah.
And Sandy's getting this, so she'll send it out to you too.
I heard a grunt, but was that a yes?
Yeah, that was a yes.
So 10 a.m. on the
21st of
This is
February.
the common commitments.
The 21st would be the 100-day plan summary and recommendations. So I'll probably send that out to you ahead of time. You can look at those 4 last pages, and then the core team and myself are gonna meet with you, and we're gonna talk about what they are, what they mean, and why we think this is important. I'll just tell you right up front, the bottom line
The last
is
4 pages, yes.
most of the things that we're already doing, we should just keep doing them and continue to try to get better at doing them. But we know that communication is an issue in every organization. It's always a big area that can get improved on, and we're going to hit on that and a few other things with some ideas. Now, some of you may not be aware of this, some of you are aware, but the core team, part of the core team met with our charter school representatives, Rhonda and Megan, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I think. And I've been communicating regularly with Sandy in regards to this idea of having a mutual meeting between our school board, the governance council of the charter school, as well as our core team of directors.
Isn't that scheduled?
That's the
Scheduled, but
27th.
Did you guys know about that?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Okay.
unless Rhonda
27th.
has anything different, we're scheduled
That's
for that.
that's
right?
Rhonda's schedule. I just wasn't certain if
Okay.
that was communicated to everybody. So yeah, that's Monday the 27th at 1,
Right,
Okay.
and that's
January
it.
27th.
January 27th.
Is that meeting gonna be here or at the chamber?
Here.
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 And Rhonda, I can't make that, I'm sorry.
It'll be no more than an hour, and it's mostly for us at this stage to get to know each other better. And then it'll develop with another meeting where we're gonna get into more of other topics that we feel we need to get everybody on the same page as with. So going back to that 100-day, or no, I'm sorry, the collective commitments.
Can the 2 retreats be on the same day?
Now let's schedule that on the 21st of February with the 100-day.
You think we can accomplish both?
Yes.
We've been working on collective commitments since October or August.
We should be awful good at it by now.
Yeah, well, we start at 10 a.m., at least we aren't gonna run too late into the afternoon, which is good.
Okay, we'll combine those two. Thank you.
I think that would,
I'm sorry, I missed the date.
same one you have already down, the 21st.
February 21st. And scratch the 19th, no.
The 31st.
Scratch the
I know.
31st.
Scratch
So we should be very deliberate on it. The first one starts at 10 a.m., the next one starts at
We're combining the
11 a.m.
Yeah,
No, we'd be very deliberate on keeping the time.
good. Hold me accountable to that,
Okay.
okay?
I don't think you're the problem.
Okay, almost done with my report here, folks. Bear with me. Does anybody have any questions for next week with the upcoming WASB convention? I included a couple of attachments in the packet. The template, the reimbursement page. I know Sandy and Steve want to go to the Davis & Kilthau presentation on Wednesday evening.
Yeah, I think I signed up online for that.
You did, okay?
I mean, did they
Pat?
send something out,
They did?
and I sent something back saying,
Okay.
yes? That's the one at the smokehouse?
No,
Oh, okay.
that's Von Dreesen and
Yeah.
Roper.
Oh, well, there were several of them out.
Okay, so we'll put.
I said
Pat
yes to
in.
both of them.
I think
I don't-
How do you do
Yeah.
both? They're both the same night?
There were 3.
Starting with the first,
Okay.
The first one, if
Okay.
you don't stay to
Okay.
eat forever,
Yeah.
you can still make it over to the Von Bryson.
Okay, can I do both then? Do we
Signed
have
up.
to sign up?
Sandy will sign us up, make sure that.
Okay.
Yeah, I will too. I think I signed at least for one, maybe
That was my plan, to go
both.
through the presentation at the first one, and after
Okay.
the
Right.
presentation, cut out to go over to the Von Bryson. and,
Got it. Okay, that
see if
sounds great.
council is there. So it sounds like all of us are doing that?
That's what it sounds like, yep. So
I
all
just
of
wanted
us,
to
we
clear that
might as well
up for
do,
Sandy.
do the same for Mark, let's sign him up.
So everybody's going to Davis and Kilthau and Von Dreesen.
Yes.
Yep,
Nobody's going to the iPads.
correct. And the last thing, I don't have an update with the Waupaca growth team, but I wanted to give you an update because I don't want to let you forget that that is an important thing that we're working on. We aren't having any additional meetings right now until the city and Aaron clears up some things with, ordinance changes that they're focused on. After we get through that process, then we're going to start meeting and doing some of the things that we want to do. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay.
Happy New Year.
I just have a follow-up on if we ever are going to have anything with Roger from WASB. Is that ever? Because that was a
As soon
meeting.
as we can find a time on the calendar.
Well, I didn't know where we were with that.
Yeah, my thought was we'll go through the 100-day review, see what the challenges are there, and then we can see if we can get him up to
Okay.
help coordinate between those observations and our expectations. How we might.
I'm sure you'll run into it
it
next week.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, very good. Moving on then to item G, the presentation, Vaping.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Very good.
So John Meyer from the, I'll get up there. Okay. Assistant principal at the middle school. We kind of go into what this started with was December meeting we had as administration team, and Wes and Nurse Jamie brought it to our attention about the vaping crisis going on. That was after when I was at school, ended up getting a hit on 8 different students with vaping pens on them that day. And with that, I decided that if we're going to do something after that presentation, I want to kind of be part of that, because if we're doing something preventative, I want to start at the middle school, because middle school is a preventative area, so we can start it younger, and so hopefully we have that consistency through the high school at the same time. And so kind of give you kind of the vision of where we're going and then where we are at in the school today. So on here, there's a chart right now that tells us with all the different types of stuff you can get into and all the different programs that are out there. We're kind of focused on decided to do the in-depth, but there are some videos within. So kind of coming from a curriculum background that I like creating, I want to try to create something that's going to be meaningful to kids. Now there's a lot of videos that are in place, the kids can just watch something, but are we making an impact on them? Are they talking to us? Are they going to be working with us? And then are they going to be reflective on it to really get into it? So that's where I want to try to create a curriculum using some of the information and blending some of these in. So we can go to the next slide on here. So the program that is in depth, I'm not going to read word for word, but there are 4 different steps to this. And of course, each one is a segment on there. And what I want to do is connect it to what we have at school is SWAT, where we're working with kids with other detentions, if they're missing work in classes, if there is a discipline issue when we're working with them. Well, this is where we want to also pull them in the same area after school in the library. If we get them in, if there's multiple ones, work in groups, but also have an adult there working with them, so it's not just them freely doing the work. And there'll be 4 sessions that are set into place. And of course, parents will be contacted as well. With this, as soon as a kid is caught vaping, again, parents are contacted, Officer Zuby is contacted, and then regardless of what they're going to do with a ticket, ISS or OSS, there's a 20-minute video that students are going to watch no matter what. This has nothing to do with the program, they're watching the video. And we already started this once with the group of 8 students working on it, and from that group of 8, I actually have them some volunteering, coming back to work on the program with me to create the curriculum. So I have the youth's insight, not just my insight. So I have a bunch of students that, yep, we'll help you out, no problem. So of course, the best time to always intervene with the parents and the students is directly after the citation has been given. So again, our courses after school with the PACA policy and violation, parents will be notified of the tobacco or vaping. The students will receive a citation, but then I will talk with the parents, work with the parents saying, okay, here's the citation, here's what it's worth, here's the date, the court date. So here's the program that's in front of you. How are we going to work this out with transportation? How are we working with the timeline? So that the students can go through and the parents can be notified of the content as well. And at the completion of the course, as long as before the court date, that citation will be removed. So again, a whole complete preventative measure that we're working on at this part. So again, when we get into the different steps on here, the session 1, the very simple objective for participants is why? Well, why is it happening? Get acquainted with one another, build that relationship, build trust in one another, try to figure out what is happening and why are you starting using it. Is it is your family using it? So kind of just what is the understanding where we are at with the group that we're working with at that time. And as we move into session 2, again, here's where we're going to get more into understanding addiction, the harmful effects of nicotine or the vaping, which we just had a speaker, like you said, last night, that addressed also our students. And I actually had some conversation with students about that, and they were able to bring some stuff out of that presentation and kind of going back and forth between vaping and tobacco itself. And of course, why? What's the trigger? Why is it starting? Why are you kind of getting into that more? And I know there's no new laws out there, and that's where I work with Wes, a lot of the new laws that are changing. And then the next level is develop strategies to cope with it. How do you get away from it? And again, what's the vision? What do they see in their life? And try to kind of use that back and forth. And of course, this will be also part of the code of conduct for our sports athletics. So we're going to get that intertwined in there as well. And then in session 4 that we end with is understanding the big picture and look at the big picture. What is this health going to do? And like I was talking to students today, it's like, okay, and it was amazing how quick the ones that are using it I know could tell you, well, that pack of cigarettes is $8 a pack. I'm like, whoa! I said, where are you getting that money? I said, what else do you want other than a pack of cigarettes? I said, what are you getting out of it? Yeah, you get a little jolt of energy or whatever. I said, but if you could save that's $8 a day, a pack a day, how much money are you wasting? So I was kind of throwing that financial twist at them. I said, what else could you get for that? Even if it's $8 a week, what could you get for that? And so that's where kind of like, how do we cope them and change them and kind of break the cycle? If it's parents and if it's family, how do we break the cycle? And what kind of use some measures into talking on that. So that's kind of the division on where we're going. And in some of the education, there's videos to watch. There's articles that they'll be working on, reading, working together, solving problems. I want them to write reflections. I want them to have a discussion piece, pull out some facts, just like handing a packet in the classroom and work. I don't want them just watching and walking away and say, oh, yep, I learned something. I want it to be a meaningful kind of impact to these kids so we can at least have the information, have the parents' information, and hopefully as we do a preventive measure at the middle school, it makes the high school easier, and at least the parents have heard it and seen it, and the consequences are set in place. So where are we at right now? So currently we've decided to use the in-depth program that is listed above. We're going through the material, so I'm watching the videos, I'm working with students, I'm pulling some stuff out, writing curriculum out, because I like doing that stuff, and trying to make sure it's middle school level appropriate, that it's not over their head, not, kind of make sure that's understanding, and that they don't have a lot of questions, and come up with a work packet. We use the intro video, like I said, and right now we haven't had any more instances of vaping since I found that big thing in December. We haven't caught anybody else with them in school. I will continue to write the curriculum and share it when there's Jamie and Wes and other teachers around me. And students will, like I said, be filling out a packet, reflect per session. And again, I also have students that I have caught vaping and students that haven't, but I know are active in vaping, who are willing to sit down, and ones you would not think would actually sit down are sitting down and giving me some good information about why they got involved, what's good about it, what are they hearing compared to what the news is hearing, so we can kind of bridge the gap between what we hear compared to what they hear. Because they hear it and they're addicted to it right now, so what can we do? So regardless of the student's decision to take the ticket, ISS, OSS, if they choose, no, we're not taking the course, we're taking a citation, well, then that's your choice. And then they'll still be required to watch a 20-minute video. And again, from now until that class, we're going to try to incorporate that Aspire self-guided online class and work with the parents. So if I catch anybody with a pen or that, I will have a parent conversation in place with them, have them brought in, show them the videos, what is happening, and Wes will be there as well when we give the citation, so the parents will be notified of that as well. And this again is try to avoid the ISS, OSSs that we have in our school and bring them the information so they can make better judgment as they go forward. It's a preventative measure that we're looking for in the middle school and try to curb it before they get to the high school. And that's why I wanted to take this on. So, and these are 3 people that are right now are working on that course with me, Wesumi, Nurse Jamie, and myself. So, are there any questions on what we're going with?
This is very exciting, and I am interested. It is so hard to change habits.
Yes, it is.
That people have, and information isn't sufficient. So, can you talk a little bit about? I know you talked about there will be discussions of strategies. and students will get information from other students about what's worked for
Mhm.
them. So could you talk a little bit about how you all might be addressing the issue of either stopping bad habits or developing new ones in terms of practice?
And that could be different per student. It could be different per background, where they come from. Again, maybe making a support group of some sort, and that's where like maybe Wes Zubia come in and Leah Zemer may come in and help with more resources. Do I have a full answer to that? No, I do not. I do not know the direction we're going to take, because it could take different directions compared to whatever student we're working on. I mean, a one-time thing, it could be, okay, I get it now. I'm gonna do my best, and maybe have a meeting once in a while with them. I don't want to say AA or whatever, but make sure the support is there, and maybe continue to give them information even when they're done with the course, and hopefully offer to students that are maybe thinking about it, and spread it out not just to the kids that I catch with vaping, but make it a program that other students can come to. So again, habits are hard to change. So once we identify who they are, keep in touch with them, see how they're doing, see if they're willing to take some counseling, see if they're willing to work with us and help those habits and break the cycle. And we all know how hard that is. So if we had an answer, we ought to be very rich if we had that one answer.
And that's
but,
true.
and so we're going to give it our full attention, and hopefully we can find ways to meet every single kid and give them the information, and not just the students, but the families. We need to incorporate the families, because if we can change the family's perspective, maybe we can change the kids' perspective as well, if it's a united front. And so that's what we're hoping to do.
John, down the road, could you maybe involve the high school SAD group?
Yes.
In this,
Yep.
even with the writing of the curriculum?
Yes.
And maybe look to the future of what could happen here, and make it a continuum from the middle school to the high school.
And I would do that, yep. Once we have it set, it's going to be like low-key. I'd work with Mike and the SAD group and everything else and say, okay, here's the next level up and going up. The same thing we've been, talking about, the athletic code. What do we do in the middle school and work our way up? So we want that continuation and to show that. But
working with those kids for many years, as I did, they were really good with working with the Interact group, with officers, the police officers at that point. I know they'll jump right into this and want to help.
And I have no problem once we get it set to share with everybody and take feedback and everything. I'm just trying to right now develop a structure.
I know that. That's down the road.
Yep. No, once we get a structure going.
Direct you to Brenda, who's in charge of SAD now. So.
Okay. Yeah. No, I have no problem sharing anything I find out and with you and everybody else. I have no problem doing that.
Great. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are parents required to watch any of the videos with the kids?
I will share them with the parents and in our initial meeting that we have with them, to sit down and go through the key steps of a curriculum, the 4 stages, and say, here are the videos, and everything will be on a packet, and everybody can email so they can actually go home and watch it with them or have a discussion. I will encourage that to take place and happen, because again, it's not just changing the students, it's changing the family culture.
Absolutely.
And that's what I said with some of the students and the speaker. They don't, behind the science of it, is the baby, this is not the issue, it's what it does health-wise. 15 years down the road, 10 years down the road with asthma and lung damage that's irreversible, in there. So it's teaching the whole family and the students in that. But if we can break a habit now, we're saving a life in the future.
Are those videos accessible? Can we watch them?
If you go on, it's the American Health Association. We're in depth. You can go on there. You can see some of them, and I can send some links that we've been looking at. Again, I'm trying to dip and dab between all of them, because some are upper level, some are lower level. So I'm trying to. I'm writing curriculum, but I'm really picky about how I write it. So, but as I share that with you, I'll be happy to show you the videos that we're looking at.
John, if a person pays for the citation, watches a 20-minute video, excuse me, and then it repeats, what happens if that cycle just says, okay, I'll pay it, I'll watch it, I'm out of here?
And that's exactly what I'm trying to figure out what will happen, and I work with what is the second offense, what is the third offense, on this, and what happens if, okay, we have it at the middle school and all of a sudden they repeat at the high school, and how does that look? There are so many different levels and steps of this. I don't know how it's going to look yet. So right now, my key thing is let's first get the first initial part set up and ready to roll out, and as this year rolls out, what will next year look like as the 8th graders go into their freshman year and then spread out to the SAD and everywhere else. What is that going to look like? That's, have a program that's throughout is the key. Absolutely.
What do you think the response was to yesterday and the speaker?
The students were mixed between the speaker. The good information that was out there could have been, me personally, thought it could have been brought a little differently as a target and hitting it. But again, I think what do we do after the speaker? You know, with the information, what we do in our advisory groups, what we do in our discussions amongst in our classroom with the students, because they are remembering some of the stuff. Like I had students come to me and they talked to me today when I was working on some stuff and about, well, what about that fact, Mr. Meyer? I'm like, well, let's talk about that fact. What do you think about it? And then we discussed it and worked on it. So the facts were good. I don't think a lot of people believe the percentages, like you mentioned, are alarming and scary. And I just don't, you know, it's that Superman complex as a youth. They don't think they're vulnerable. They think they can handle everything.
Right.
And it's breaking that down, which is good. But the information was good.
It was.
Yep.
Was it, like, I wish I could have gone, but I couldn't, so I'm asking questions. Was it, like scare tactics kind of thing? I just
I
remember.
don't think scare
in high
tactics,
school
more here's the
seeing-
facts and right here in front of you.
Seeing
That's
black
kind of what
lungs
they do.
and whatever, and
Right.
like, you know, visuals sometimes really.
Now, there was a slideshow that was presented, I didn't see it there, I saw the 8th grade one.
Uh-huh.
And I think an approach set up differently to really reach the kids could have been a little bit different, but again.
Who was the presenter yesterday?
What was her name?
Well, Brooke,
Patty.
the lady during the day who presented to the students was named Brooke from American Heart Association.
Okay.
We had a different group present at night.
Uh-huh.
That was videotaped, and we're looking at if we could maybe post it or something. I do think the one presentation that happened last night had a little bit more of an impact with me than the one that we had during the day, unfortunately.
Okay. What did the high school students think of it?
Well,
Abby?
Gail?
It's a joke.
Wait, what?
The way she presented it was so bad, it's just become a joke among the students.
Like, describe bad. What's bad?
Like, just the way she worded stuff, and there's a lot of words misspelled on the slides, and just, like, she called a lot of grades stupid or dummies, and so it's just become a joke among students, and they're not talking about the information so much as the way she presented it.
Okay.
So I think if they would have went to the one at night, it would have went over a little bit better, but the one in the day, it didn't do anything.
She referred to the students as test dummies.
Yes.
Targeted.
What?
And so.
She had I saw the sophomore and the junior presentation.
Yeah.
I will commend our students for being so respectful because she was not to our students. Okay? I've seen better presentations. There was, she was trying to get the point across that at this point, like with smoking, everybody smoked in the 50s and 60s. You can see in all the movies. Nobody knew. Now we know, so smoking is down to like a very minimal amount, okay, compared to what it was. She was trying to make the point that vaping now is an unknown. And right now, you folks are the test dummies that they're working it on.
Right.
You know, you're
The
like
point,
the test
the point she was
dummies.
trying to make was valid, but the way she worded it was not ideal.
Disrespectful.
Yeah.
The information was good, but the presenter
Yes,
could have been
very
changed.
much so.
So, does a presenter like that ever ask for feedback?
She did not, but Mrs. Plum and I are in contact with
Yeah.
the association, just to let them know our feedback. I
Sure.
do think it's very important for us to share the experience that we went through, and hopefully that will change in future presentations.
Yeah, because if, you know, it's gonna do more harm than good.
I do want to give a kudos though to the SAD group and Ms. Blum, Brenda, for helping bring those in, and Mike, the administration here to bring that in. I did get a chance to talk to some students today in there, and yes, it was about the presentation, but then we started talking about some of the facts.
Yeah.
And some of the facts were heard. Like
some of the
one
facts
of those
were-
pods is equal to 1 pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, but
And
she
some
had a,
kids are
she had a
doing that
stat
one a
that
day.
wasn't correct with that, at least I don't think.
So she, I had to read her slides and not listen to her when I was here. But I think a lot of the students were very respectful and they paid attention.
Yeah.
We just had a small handful as normal that, you know, they weren't interested. But for the most part, for what you guys sat through, I was very impressed with our student body. There was no complaints there at all.
As our age group did very well listening, and they picked up on some of the misspelling. But again, they weren't excited about her presentation. They said, but they were able to pull facts out of it.
Yeah.
Which is, okay, so the facts on the board they saw, they witnessed, we can use that information to still go forward and kind of put the speaker part behind it.
I kind of like to pull something positive out of it,
Correct.
which was people are talking about it.
Yeah.
That's the positive right now. So maybe it was a blessing that she wasn't that good of a presenter because people are talking about it.
I
And
think
some of
we
the
got-
facts are still there.
Okay, I think if we got the teachers on board to talk about the facts rather than, because a couple of my teachers were like asked, because they weren't able to go, so they were asking what the presentation was like. And that was where the kind of the jokes started about that presentation rather than talk about the facts. So I think if we get the teachers to talk about the facts rather than the way they're presented, it might go over a little bit better also.
I think Mr. Rabowski.
Okay, your announcement was very good.
Yeah, you made a nice announcement over there, and you talked to some of the groups of kids that brought it in, and that really helped. I know it helped the SAD kids feel better about it, because they were feeling kind of down that they thought they had a good positive speaker coming in and assumed that it would be, but you made them feel better about with their cause. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, even though I didn't want them, the presentation or the facts to be overshadowed by the presenter. And I just announced that to everyone, and I appreciated the fact that the kids had the courage to bring this forward and make this an issue for us to have at this discussion. So
I give kudos, they noticed the slides that had misspelling, so they must be paying attention to the slides. You must be paying attention to something.
Poison wasn't spelled right.
So, right, yeah, but so
English
somebody was
teachers
reading
are
the
working.
slides.
Any other
So,
questions?
not knowing what type of numbers of factors we may have that are impacted here, the selection of the in-depth, the in-depth program, my understanding is that is adult led.
Yes.
You will have the resources you believe to be able
Yes.
to handle that.
Yep. I have teachers volunteering, or in the SWAT program, they get paid after school, and I have multiple teachers signing up for that. And then there will be, at school, after school, with a teacher there at some point. I'll try to be there as many times as possible to lead it.
Excellent.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on the agenda.
Needs a change on school district policy, but it's on us. The insurance, Moselle and I are firing back and forth memorandums of understanding because, like, it's still my dog. So, what's the city paying for? What am I paying for? How does that work? And it's kind of all done through donations. And
How old is your dog?
2 years old. Well, just over 2. He turned 2. Well, I've had him for 2 years as of December 23rd. Yes, I wrote my hunting dog off as my daughter's Christmas present that year, but we got him right before Christmas 2 years ago. We took the. She can look back someday. I did get her permission that he could come to work with me, so she is on board. Yeah, we took the first steps over Christmas break. One of the first things for the class was he had to get fixed, and I hadn't gotten him fixed yet because of like hip dysplasia. Like the longer you wait on that, the better it is for the hip dysplasia stuff. So, so I got that done, and now he's all healed up. He's not used to wearing a harness, so tomorrow his harness, we ordered it last week. It should be here tomorrow. I will take that home, and we're gonna start playing with the harness. I talked to some of the actual like drug dog canine handlers about tips to get them to like it right away. Because normally you put a harness on a dog that's never had a harness, the first thing they do is try to figure out how to get out the harness. So I have some tips and tricks that I got from the canine handlers. So he's energetic, but at the same point, I've told different people I could walk him through the lunchroom with all the kids without a leash and he'd stay with me. Because I trained him starting as a puppy that way because I hunt with him, so if I'm walking in a duck marsh, I don't want to have him on a leash, and he just walks with me. He's going to look at everybody like, are you going to be my friend? Are you going to be my friend? Are you going to be my friend? But he'll stay with me, so.
Well, just a comment, certainly not inventing the wheel here. I mean, most nursing homes now have therapy dogs. Resident halfway houses oftentimes have either a resident dog or have somebody come in with them on a real regular basis. And you see it on television occasionally in news programs. So I think the students and parents for that matter will be pretty familiar with the concept because again, it's pretty common in a lot of other places. So I think it's a great idea. And as you say, you might get flooded initially, but after a short time, it'll just be seen as a member of our community, so to speak.
Right. So I mean, if this works out well, then when Blaze retires or when I promote out of being police liaison officer or whatever might happen, then the plan is then we will continue the service, and we'll go out. It costs a certain amount of money to get them trained, but it's like if you went out and bought a already trained certified therapy dog ready to work the day they show up, it's roughly $3,000. So, but if this works, the city, per Chief Ozell, would be, the police department would continue this process even after I'm no longer here or Blaze retired or however it worked out.
So, and thank you for doing this. Appreciate it. It's going to be awesome. Well, how is the other therapy dog that comes in once in a while? This is Peterson's, I believe, or I've met the therapy dog in the WLC one day.
Yeah, they have therapy dogs come in there for reading. And if they want to continue, that's up to them.
Yeah.
You know, if they want me instead, that's up to them. If they want me on a different day for a different reason, that's, you know, John and Jody can call me, you know, and schedule. And what we're setting up, and Steve and I talked about it yesterday, is, you know, let's say the middle school calls and wants the therapy dog one day, with that second police liaison officer having our offices set up that we can swap out our computers so that the other police liaison officer can come out and use my office, since we don't need both of us at the middle school, and so I can float around a little bit more.
Yeah, I was amazed with how the kids were settled down over there when the dog came in, and then they listened to the story and were willing to participate while they were just petting the dog.
Yep.
Very relaxed.
I have a feeling I'm going to see a lot more, I shouldn't say more, I should say a lot less tension in my office if I have Blaze in there, even if a kid's in trouble. Just because there's a happy face that even if I have to give them bad news, there's a positive interaction with the dog. So I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, my 4-year-old's on board, so we're all set.
Will Blaze have a badge?
He will. Ozell told me to order it today. We had to figure out badge numbers and what the future of the Waupaca Police Department look like, and what badge numbers are going to be available 10 years from now, and stuff like that. So when I'm done here, I will order his badge that he'll wear on his collar.
So hopefully we'll see him at a school board meeting too sometime. That'll calm everybody down.
I'm sure we can figure something out.
Before everybody else gets tense, thank you. Any other questions?
Sounds awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Wes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's great.
Thank you guys.
Okay, I'm sorry I've now lost my spot after that. I've gone on the duty to therapy dog monitoring. We have eliminated those 2 items, A and B, under monitoring for this evening, pending review. So we will go on to board reports, meetings, and school visits. Does anybody have anything
I'll go
they would
first.
like to report tonight?
I'll go first today. I was able to MC the Student Council's Christmas Trivia Night that was out here right before Christmas. There were a total of 6 teams. Your team was out there. It was a very good team. I thought the questions were very well written, and I believe, because I think you talked to Mr. McGivens also,
I got
that they shared that. Oh, you got the questions? So really, really good and well thought out, and the kid was a lot of fun with the kids. I think we were out there for an hour and a half.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time.
It was really fun.
So very, very nice, and it was just a real positive thing to go with. There had to be 45 students out there.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun, and I appreciate
Can I ask
it.
a question about that? He sent me the video presentation of it, or the PowerPoint presentation of it. Did teams work together and you got a bunch of questions and you figured out the answers and then you turned in your
No,
thing,
it was,
or
they did them one by one. So they had like one question up.
Okay.
So like, where did the Christmas tree originate?
Yeah.
And so then you'd write down Germany and hold it up and they go, oh, you're right. Or
Okay.
if you wrote down like Austria, oh, you're wrong, or like whatever.
So it was the
it
first
is.
team to hold up their sign?
No, we walked
everyone
around.
could have gotten points.
Yeah.
It was
Oh,
if you got it
okay.
right or if you got it
Everybody
wrong.
filled out
Yeah.
a piece of paper, then they had a person go around and pick up a
Okay.
piece
Yeah.
of paper.
Yeah.
And if you got it right, you got the point.
Because I noticed that was the question, and then I thought, oh, that was a good question. Let's go to the next question. It was the answer, and I thought, oh, no.
No, it didn't come on until maybe I sang White Christmas, or
Yeah.
Where did
we
it
had
cross
to
the dead is magic?
give a little hints in there once in a while.
Yeah.
Like, where'd the Christmas tree come from, and I had to sing Old Tannenbaum in German and
Yeah.
things like that, you know, so give them little hints, but
Oh.
for the most part, well written. Did you read them?
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
good
I did.
questions.
I did. I went through like 5, but I would love to do it sometime with a group. so I tried to not look at the answers.
Yeah. There was old and new,
Yeah,
so very
yeah,
nice.
It was very well done.
And then today, I got to go and say all these good things, this cookie judging today. In Mrs. Nelson's room, in the face room today. And there was 7 groups this morning, and they talked just like they do on the Food Network. Presenting, the nice presentation, how fluffy the cookies are, how good tasting, and boy, man, they were just delicious. So lucky I didn't eat breakfast, but they said, oh, Santa's here, so it was Santa's a good judge of cookies.
I noticed we didn't have any tonight.
No, I ate all mine.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that's all right. But we judge on 3 different things, and there were 10 points. They really want the teacher or the judge to give them good feedback. But it was hard because they were all delicious. So, and then of course we had to wash our mouths out a little bit beforehand, before you get the next cookie. But fantastic. You didn't eat any of the cookies today. You were there for one, right?
Yeah, Mark and I were a team, so he tasted them, and I smelled, and I did what was it, the texture and appearance, I think, right?
And you ate, huh? Yeah.
What did you
Good team.
cleanse your palate with?
Milk. Every good Santa does that with milk, you know that. Yeah. That's that. So that was my 2 visits, for at least the 2 that I wrote down, plus the vaping thing, but we talked about that already, so. Okay.
I had an opportunity to go to WLC today and had a very generous meeting with John Erspamer and Jody Pankratz for a time, and special ed teacher Nikki John Grove for a short period also. But John was very generous with his time. I was glad to hear from Lori that there will be, as part of monitoring, a presentation related to special ed. It really was, I asked John, what would you like to shine a light on? And he said, I'd like to shine a light on the work that the staff in our school do to support students when they come to our district and need to be integrated into our special ed program. And it really has a domino effect. He said it can affect as many as 10 different staff members, from regular ed classrooms to aides to the special ed teachers and Lori also. I think he was just so grateful for the team that they have at WLC, all working together. He never hears from people, oh, I can't do it, John. It's whatever it takes, we'll do it. And so much work goes before a child even comes into the school to set it up, whether it's reviewing an IEP that comes with the child from another school, figuring out where the best placement is going to be for the child within the program, what's going to be the best teacher to work with the child, or best classroom teacher also. What aides are going to have the best fit for making relationships with the child? How is this going to impact the schedules and connections of other students, because you're making room for another person with a personality, and then working with the families beforehand. So when we were reading our field book, our school board field book, I mean, there was a whole section on not trying to be protective of the amount of time that it takes to make change when change has to happen. And this is when a student moves into the school district, we have to be able to respond quickly. So the team at our schools, the teams at our schools work very hard to make sure there are processes in place. It's a lot of work. And you want the students to feel included. You want the trust with the families, and that takes time to build over the years. As I was walking down the hall with Mr. Erspamer, a student was walking in the other direction, and he was, I don't know how old he was, maybe 3rd or 4th grade. Hi, Mr. Erspamer, I'm finished. Big smile on his face. That was so nice to see. And John couldn't say enough nice things and positive things about the team that they have at WLC. And it was great to be there and hear that and see that. And have pages and pages of notes. And I think that was just a very positive, positive talk with him, and nice to hear how grateful he is for the support of his team, and how grateful they are for his support as well.
Thank you.
Well, I had the flip side. I too was assigned that school, so I went today and didn't meet with John, but met with several of the staff who had the same impression. They appreciate the guidance and leadership of the administration of that school. They just said how nice it is to work with the two administrators and how grateful they are. But I was able to go into, 6 or 7 classrooms, and there's so many things I could talk about, but to keep it short, Lori Zielinski's class was insightful for me, and I know she had made the transition from from chain to WLC. So I was curious how that was going, and she said it was great. But there was so much excitement in her classroom, and the students came in when I walked in, and they said, "Do you know about our kindness squad?" And I said, "No, tell me about your kindness squad." So there's a group of children in her class that are called the kindness squad, and every month her classroom does some type of kindness project for someone or something. They might make Christmas cards for nursing homes. They make Christmas cards for soldiers this year. In December, they made care packages for every teacher in the Learning Center with hot chocolate and whatever. So, and then the class has kindness goals that they have to work too. So it was very insightful how she's really promoting kindness in her classroom and hence in the community and in the world. And the kids were so excited about it. Then I went into Claire Ellie's class, and her students were all excited because they had an exercise today, crack the code, or a breakout box, where there's a little box that comes into the classroom, and the kids work in groups together to break codes on mystery solving things, like those breakout rooms that they have now. But the kids were so excited that they had gotten it this month, and they had, apparently one of the codes was incorrect, and they worked and they worked and they worked, and they couldn't solve it, and they couldn't solve it, and they couldn't solve it. And finally Claire said to the teacher, we're having a hard time. And there was a glitch in it, but she said the good news is it made the kids even think harder as to how they could solve it. She suggested that it might be a fun activity for our board to do sometime.
Not on camera.
Well, but she said it might be a fun thing to do. It's a great community builder, and she said your board would probably have fun with that. I kept asking how the flu has that gone rampant yet, and they said no. They've really only had 2 or 1 or 2 kids in their classes with it. So far so good, but they are worried because they said it's so hard for subs nowadays, and I didn't realize that there's an issue with getting substitute teachers. They said that's their biggest concern, is that if it would go, how we deal with the subs. So, and then I ran into Mrs. Nevela, and she had results of the ITS test. What are the tests? iReady test. She was very excited with some of the results of that. And then lastly, Lisa Anderson, she's always got a test for you. So they had a speaker come in today from Thailand and talk to the kids. And so she wanted me to ask the board how you say thank you in Thai.
It's a common question.
Yeah, common question, Well, it's cup chai. So she asked me to tell you that, because she knows you always get a little test from her room. She was very excited because her class she said maybe the past 10 years, once a month she takes her class to the Veterans Home, and they work with a group of veterans. And when they went in November, they were informed that would be the last time that her class would be going there. She was informed by the Veterans Home. And she said she was immediately sad and couldn't understand why, but because the Veterans Home is building a new hall. Some of the residents have been scattered to other halls, And so her group that her classes always work with is now scattered in all directions. Insightfully, she got on the phone and called Park Vista and said, do you ever take classes of young people? They said, bring it on. So next week, her class for the first time is going to visit Park Vista and once a month work with the residents there. And they are overjoyed to have students come. And so they were practicing songs that they're going to sing for the residents. So they were very excited. And they actually invited me to go on Thursday to watch them sing their songs at Park Vista. So it was a great visit. The energy at that school is incredible. So.
What age group is that then?
It was Lisa Anderson's class, and they'll be at Park Vista from 8:45 to 9:45.
What age group is that?
Second grade.
Second grade.
Yeah, I think it's second grade. Second or third? Second, I think.
Second.
Yeah, second. So cute.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
I went to the elementary school also, but I went for a shorter visit. I went to talk to Jody, and we had a very nice conversation, and she was excited for tonight at the rec center. They're having some type of game night, and they are extremely excited. She said they had over 300 people sign up, so she's hoping that she gets 300 or more people there tonight. And I talked to Jan Burchin. She's a kindergarten teacher, and we had a very nice conversation. And also went up and talked with Sue Harrington. Almost forgot her name. Sue is just oh my gosh, is she a wonderful teacher. One little guy was being a little naughty boy, and she just went over and gave him a hug, and he settled right down. It was just, yeah, it was very neat. Then I went and left the elementary school and went to the middle school. I wanted to see a couple of teachers in there, and I saw Katie Giles. I saw a couple of teachers, and I told them I wouldn't use their name. But I asked them at the middle school, I said, the effects of Wednesday's early dismissal, how's that affecting your classes? Well, I asked the right question, because they were both excited as heck. They have been doing some testing, and they had the whole class pass everything. Not only that, they had a special child in there, and the special child wrote a page and a half on the questions, and the teacher said everything that they wrote was right. So they were just extremely excited about having Wednesdays off and the program that they're all teaching the same material at the same time. And so I thought it was well worth going. Thank you.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't say something about the drama coming up, and not so much the piece being put on. But I went to two of the rehearsals, two of the, not so much the rehearsals, but the cast, finding the cast before Christmas, working with Monica. And that was really, really interesting. And of course, Abby knows, because she was in 39 Steps last year. And I help Monica every year pretty much in doing that, getting the cast set. But this year is special, and I think most of you know the reason it's special for me is because it's a combined effort this year between the high school drama class and the Waupaca Community Theater. So you'll have, for the first time, at least to my knowledge, in the last 40 years, you'll have the high school students working with older adults on stage together. And when I went to the reading on January 2nd, when all of the cast members were together for the first time, and there's about 20, almost split in half, 8, I think 9 and 9, and a couple extras, 9 older adults and 9 high school students. It was really interesting because, to a person, the older adults were really thrilled to work with young people. And, it's amazing, people who are in their 70s and 80s are saying, it's so nice to work with these young people. We've had, this opportunity is just so unusual to do. So I give a lot of credit to Monica and Amy Holterman, who are the two directors from the two sides and the coming together with the work. And it's hopefully will be a great production. But even if it isn't the greatest production in the world, it's going to be fun for all the people participating because of the fact that they're able to work together. So something different.
When is the play?
It's in February. It's starting on the Wednesday, the 20. It's the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, something like that. It starts Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days.
And the name of the play and the author?
Yeah, well, the name of the play is called Two Flags for Marco. I'm the author. And Monica and I have been working, and Amy, since last spring to try to bring this together. But I don't really want to talk about that because to me, that's not nearly as exciting as having the young people. And of course, I point to Abby because we worked together a little bit last year with 39 Steps. And it's really fun to work with them and the older adults. It's just so unique. It's something that hasn't happened before, and hopefully will happen some more in the future. And it all started because there's a lot of the older adults in the play, in the story, that are older adults. And with no offense to Abby, Monica says, young students don't do old people very well. Yeah, up to a certain age, maybe 30 and 40. Yeah, well, that's true. Once they get beyond 40, she forgets. She said the only way we can do it is if we get older adults. And so they reached out and talked to the community theater, and they're going to do it collaboratively. So it's a great way to communicate with our community as a whole. So it'll be in the PAC in February. You'll hopefully hear more about it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we've got a couple of proposed changes to our dates for the February and March regular board meetings. I'll entertain discussion on those.
You know, I had it in the packet. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. I'm grateful to be able to attend the National Superintendent Convention coming up the week of February 10th. That does conflict with our regular February meeting, so I'm just recommending that we postpone it to February 25th, which would be the fourth Tuesday in February. Tuesday, February 25th.
I make a motion to change it to February 25th.
Will that go for the March one then too? Are we voting on both
No,
at
we're
the
just
same
doing
time?
one right now, I think, because there's two different motions.
Yeah.
Okay. My thought was, how would that affect the April meeting then? Because if we go with March 24th, it'll be like just 2 weeks then until we'll have an April meeting?
I think we need to get back to our normal schedule as soon as we can.
Okay.
So I would
even though
propose that we not adjust any more than we have to
Okay,
adjust.
but my thought was if instead of postponing it 2 weeks, if we postponed it 1 week, would that?
We could. I just, the rationale for pushing it back was because there was a break, it would give people an extra week to get their reports in. And we meet the week before the meeting, the core team.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, there'd be a break of an extra week in there.
Okay.
Either way, we can live with it.
And I have city council the first Tuesday and third Tuesday.
But
Okay.
will either of these two dates
Then
affect
these won't
that?
work.
No, yeah,
No, these
will
will.
work.
These will work? Okay.
Okay.
Well, then, since we had discussion, I'll make a motion for both dates to be changed. February 25th and to March 24th.
And there's a motion to change our monthly regular board meetings. February would be Tuesday, February 25th at 5:15 here in this room. And the March regular board meeting would be Tuesday, March 24th at 5:15 here in this room. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving along. Upcoming meetings. We have, as was alluded to earlier, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards State Convention, January 24th through 22nd through 24th. There will be a majority of the board there, however, there will be no action taken. January 30th, DOJ threat assessment training at 8 a.m. And then finally, we have amended the February meeting to February 25th.
Steve, it just occurred to me, since we aren't meeting until February 25th, as of the last motion, there's a meeting coming up by WASB in the Dells on February, I think it's 20th. It's their legal update that they have every year. I wasn't going to even bring it up today. I thought, well, we'll do it at our February meeting, but we're not going to meet till after that now. So I'm just wondering if anybody else is interested in going. I have gone in the past and was thinking about going again this year. So just so you know, that one could have been listed tonight because we won't meet till the 25th. But I believe it's Thursday the 19th or whatever.
Is that the Kalahari one?
Yeah.
Okay, for our regular meetings, we may have enough board members to form a quorum. We have these. And thank you for that, everybody.
Yeah.
Moving on, spring election candidates.
Just two.
Candidates.
Steve and Pat.
Okay. Administration.
For one spot.
We've got two for two spots.
You can have it.
We've got an open enrollment limits document.
Is it possible to flip those orders?
Flip what?
Flip the order of
One, two.
A and B there underneath 9.
Makes more sense.
One and two.
1 and 2.
Sure.
I make a
Underneath E,
motion.
yeah. So ideally, you guys got my packet about student enrollment 1920 and future enrollment projection. Obviously, we do the third Friday count in September updates and the second Friday count in January updates, so that would be a little more comprehensive at this point in time, just take it as an opportunity. So that second page then, it just shows you that enrollment of the state of Wisconsin for the last several years versus Waupaca versus other Waupaca County schools. And you can see the trend, right? There's fewer school-age children in the state of Wisconsin, period. And that's a trend that's been going on since at least 2014, 2015. And then just to continue with comparison data, that chart below, chart 2, is looking at comparable school districts. So comparable in terms of population and socioeconomic status across the state of Wisconsin. Again, the vast majority of those continue to decrease in student enrollment. The following sheet then compares all of our CISA region, and more than 2/3 of the districts in our CISA region continue to decrease in their enrollment as well. I don't suppose there's any new information to anybody who's been part of education for a while. Then on page 4 is the chart 4 that shows the enrollment in the school district of Waupaca over the last several years. The only note there is that the last column where it says 2,118 for the 1920 school year is not certified yet. The DPI has to go through that rules and regulations. And really, the bottom line here is, again, just to draw our attention, we've been decreasing in student enrollment for 10 years, essentially.
The only positive thing in looking at those numbers, what I did earlier on, was that we're really not out of sorts with everybody else.
Correct.
That's the only good thing that came out of that. I mean, it isn't like we fell off the table when everybody else is hanging.
No, and you know, we've talked from our different experiences and different lenses and looked at rhyme or reason, location, and whatever else, and I don't think you can pin it to one thing.
No.
Right? So the next page, chart 5, just kind of talks about, and this was interesting, in terms of the number of students in and out so far this school year. So from June 7th, which was kind of the first day of the new school year, last day of the last school year, to January 7th, you know, we welcomed in 143 new students, and at the same time period, we saw 156 kids. So it's a net loss of 13 students. And you can see by grade level where we tend to lose those students, at least for this 1 year data snapshot. So you can see we've welcomed in more younger students than we have at the other grades. So enrollment in, you know, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade increased, while enrollment in the other grades either decreased or went down.
Mark, if I may, do we know, and I realize this is purely numbers, but do we know if there are any family units that might be impacting multiple grades?
There could be. I didn't answer that, but I'm sure there are. This next chart, I shared something very similar with this last year. I think it was in April. This sort of a chart that just kind of showed enrollments and projections. This year, 4K was down. We're averaging around 156 in 4K for the previous 4 or 5 years. This year, we only welcomed in 136 4K students. Not quite sure what happened there, but we took that and readjusted those numbers. And so again, anything in yellow was predicted because those kids aren't enrolled yet, right? Just a different way to look at what's happening to our population and overall enrollment numbers. They continue to go down. The nice thing is with these sort of projections, they're not going to decrease at the same rate that they have been. It seems as if they kind of settled out a little bit more, even out a little bit more in the future.
Can I ask a question? The excuse me, the 18-19 last year, the number 160. Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
that was accurate.
Yeah, that was 4K. So then the next number down, 147. So we actually lost some students from.
So you got to track that over to the 1920 column. So those 4K kids became kindergarten kids, and we retained 144 of those students out of the 160. What happens is there's families that don't live in our attendance area, but because of our 4K sites that do like wraparound childcare, they would bring their children with them.
Okay.
Once their kid is kindergarten age, you can enroll them in your home school. So that's been a trend for many years that we've had. That we, somewhere around the 90% retention of 4K to kindergarten.
So those numbers on the left column or the first column really got to look diagonally all the way down to really see the diff.
Yeah, and so if we track that 160 to the next year 144, and that 144 just continues through. Again, that's all predicted based off our current numbers. Like one of the previous charts I showed with you, this year already in the first 7 months of the school year, 143 kids moved in, 156 kids moved out. So again, those are all predictions. Right?
Just this year so far?
Yeah, since June 7th, so end of last school year, all the way through January 7th, we've had quite a movement of students.
Wow.
So we're going to continue to track that, monitor that.
Mark,
Now, if you go back to the prior slide, the previous was kind of that.
And so it isn't that as of September 1st, all these students left. It probably happened over the summer or?
Yeah, over the 7-month time period. So
7 months, okay.
this is in total over the 7-month time period.
Right.
And
I'm just wondering whether it happened over the summer that families moved out or made decisions, or if it happened after the first of the year. Do you have a sense?
All of the above.
Okay. All of the above.
Since September 7th, the numbers have changed. Or since January 7th, excuse me, the numbers have changed.
3 of those kids moved in July 1st with me.
There you have it.
And we thank you. Okay.
And when is our next column? Next Monday?
No, it was this past Friday.
Past Friday.
Okay. So the final chart I want to share with you is open enrollment in and open enrollment out. So open enrollment out are students who live in the school district of Waupaca attendance boundaries who actively open enroll out, right? And then vice versa, incoming students that don't live in our attendance boundaries that open enroll into Waupaca. And so all the school districts listed are where all of our kids are coming and going. So if you just focus on Almond, for example, you see that there's one kid that we lose to Almond who happens to be a 6th grader. In return, we get 11 students from the Almond School District, 1 kindergartner, 1 1st grader, 1 4th grader, and so on. So the net difference is we're picking up 10 students who don't live in our district, who live in the district of Almond. Anything in that light blue or purplish color is a virtual school. So we don't have kids that go to Appleton. We don't have kids coming from the Appleton Connections Academy. We lose 5 kids to the Appleton Connections Academy. And you can see their grades there, and so forth and so on. So all these districts are that change or exchange of students. The bottom of page 8 kind of does a summary for you. And again, this data was accurate as when this information was pulled. So overall totals, we lose 13 students during the course of the year through open enrollment exchanges. If you just look at the virtual schools, we lose 36 students. So if you remove virtual schools from the equation, we'd actually be positive students coming into our district. But our world has changed, and so virtual schools are part of the open enrollment equation.
Can I ask you a question about those schools? We don't have one, but do those schools, I'm just looking, just have that Waupaca up there, are they able to count those virtual students as students?
Yeah.
And Tomorrow River has a virtual school now too. That doesn't separate it out. Do you have a sense of?
Well, yeah, because they got a variety of, isn't there like another
charter
school as well?
Yeah. Yep.
We have 41 of our students going to Tomorrow River. Wow.
That's because of their environmental school primarily.
And part of it may be the virtual.
Yeah, and virtual.
And most of that's pre-kindergarten as well.
This is just a question for Ron, just because, have you ever worked in a district with a virtual school?
Yeah, I've put one in before.
Oh, okay. Was it successful in terms of I mean, there's obviously a lot of
In our
work.
case, it wasn't. It was, we partnered with CISA 9 with their virtual school, so we shared the revenue. I don't know if that's the right way to go.
I'm just curious if you had experience with it, because we obviously have not.
Be something we'd probably talk about with recommendations. Be nice to, even if we got part of that 36, those 36 students, you know, how can we better meet the needs to keep them in, I mean, if we had a virtual school, pay for itself.
So part of the first, 6 tables was to show you that, declining enrollment's a trend. We know those, and there's no single reason why, per se. Obviously, the last chart we just showed you, I pulled out the virtual for a reason, but, so in summary here, it's more comprehensive than what you've received in the past in terms of those student enrollment counts for a reason, because I believe that knowing our data is a critical starting point in changing our data. So we have to know that at this level, of course. And so I think it's also going to be a multifaceted approach if you're going to change enrollment trends, because the state of Wisconsin it's not growing in population, especially school-age children. So how are you going to grow the population of the school district of Waupaca? Well, we either got to bring families in, or we're taking kids from other districts.
Or not losing what we have.
Right, so it's going to be a combination, a variety of things. It really has to happen. And so what are we doing, and what have we done to change this trend? These these numbers have been trending for a long time. So increase awareness of our data. That's number one, of course. 2, improving our school district Waupaca brand. And we need to look at how do we continue to communicate that out, whether it's through promotional flyers, job postings, Facebook, Infinite Campus, whatever. I mean, some districts use billboards, some districts use radio ads. And there's a lot of ways in which to do some different things. I think creation and maintenance of the community partnerships that we have already going on. So I just listed a couple up there as well. But how do we continue to expand those so the word gets out about the great things that are happening in our school district? I think when we brought on the addition of the Chain Exploration Center, I wasn't a part of that initially, but I believe part of that was to retain and hopefully attract students and provide students with another opportunity as well. So I think that's absolutely a step in the right direction. We continue to look at our comprehensive course offerings. We have 14 articulated courses with Fox Valley Technical College, a couple of advanced standing courses with them. We have 3 CAP courses or articulations with UW Oshkosh. We offer at least 9 AP courses taught in the building. In addition to that, we provide other individual studies courses along those ways to meet student needs. And so all those co-curricular opportunities we talk about, that's that comprehensive thing that we continue to offer, and I think that adds value, of course. I think something like the Waupaca Way, the consistent and expanded use of creating clarity and consistency of our expectations helps people know our brand and what we're about. Again, creating good students who also happen to be academically gifted. The growth team, the Waupaca growth team, Ron touched on and has talked about a little bit before, but how do you involve other stakeholders outside the world of education, such as the city administrator, chamber of commerce, local county economic development, the foundry, parents, whatever, about our community. It's not the school district's community, it's not the city's community, it's not the foundry's community, it's our community. So how do we put our heads together to grow our community? And that's what Mr. Sowery is working on doing. Working with Ashley, who does our student information and enrollment stuff, we're going to create a brief survey that's aligned to the school perception survey for the families leaving our district to try to get a little bit more information over what's going on with some of those. A lot of them, it's movements of families. And we're not going to change that necessarily, right? But we just want to make sure. We want to make sure that there's data behind what we believe, because just beliefs isn't good enough to make those changes. We need to have the data behind those things. I think it's probably time we start very light steps. Look at what would be the possibility of a virtual school and what does that mean. If we're losing that many kids to a virtual school, there's obviously a community request for that, so we'd have to look at that. I think the creation of the Waupaca Works is another positive thing that we put in place several years ago that brings people into our high school to connect with kids on a weekly basis. So I think there's a lot of things we're already doing. Like Mr. Sari said earlier, we got to do some things better, and we're gonna add some things too. Of course. So no recommendations. This was just an informational memo, but it does set up Schmidt's next conversation that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions on that before we do move on to the potential motions?
No, but thanks a lot for this.
Yeah.
It was really informative.
I think the additional detail is very helpful. Okay, with that, enrollment limits.
Correct. Annually, our board, and I apologize for my voice, I'm still a little squeaky. Annually, our board is required to consider or set limits for open enrollment entrances into the district. These limits are for the regular open enrollment period. So those applications that start the month of February and roll through April. They lift and allow our district to make decisions for alternate open enrollment applications once we get to the summer and once we know more of what our staffing looks like, et cetera. So as I shared under the proposal section of this report, it talks a little bit about regular education and a little bit about special education. So it says, yes, the board has the ability to establish limits for regular education. The board also has the ability to establish limits for special education, separate of each other. So you'll see in the charts in this report as we talk about both of those separate spaces. So given that condition, based on our current enrollment, we will have spaces within our regular education program that are open between the grades of 5 and 12. We will see some limits recommended for 4K through grade 4 based on our AGR and class size recommendations that we already have. Because the other piece that we don't want to see happen is to have an open enrollment come in and have us push our hand for a staffing model or an expenditure to increase staffing where we wouldn't have to based on our current model. Special education, I utilize the DPI caseload determination format that they've had, I think, since about 2007. It's the same publication that's been used in the school district of Waupaca for staffing and open enrollment decisions in the past years as well. So based on those conditions, we have to talk about the fact it's important for the board to know that students that have already applied for open enrollment and that are already in our district, no reapplication is required. They're scooped into our counts as we roll into next year's numbers. Tuition waivers, which are students that move out of our district, out of their resident district being Waupaca, are allowed, that are outside of that open enrollment piece. So they're allowed to continue their attendance and be accepted in. And then again, those desired caseloads from DPI in terms of the options for determining caseloads in special education. So this chart is broken up by 4K and then into WLC and chain. So you can see, based on our current staffing model, we have plenty of space available in our regular education model for our 4K program. Our available space in special education across the district, you will see, is 0. Meaning we would not be accepting any students with IEPs during that regular open enrollment session based on what our current ratios are within our department, as well as our current rate of referrals of the fact that we already have current students that are still being referred for process. It's also important for me to share with the board that this does not include any student that may be moving into the district. So far this week, I've had 4 files that have been placed on my desk of 4 students that have moved into our district with an IEP. Those students are ours. We will program for them and we will get them enrolled in our district and started up. But with students moving in, it allows us to be more flexible within that. For the Waupaca Learning Center, thank you for going back, Steve. The Waupaca Learning Center, you can see our available regular ed spaces, K through 4, total 56 open spaces. Where we have grade 2 right now that is already maxed out on AGR as we move into next year. So accepting any other students through open enrollment would have an increased effect on staffing.
So just to be really clear there, that second grade where it says 18 per section, that's that AGR, we receive title funds for that, or funds to keep that ratio. So 18 sections at 18 kids equals 134 kids. That's our current enrollment in first grade. So if we accepted more students, that means we would have to hire another teacher. So we'd be over that 18-to-1 ratio to start the school year. Now, after the start of the school year, if students move into that second grade, we wouldn't be required to hire new teachers.
Or apply for open enrollment into that second grade. We can make that decision based on our staffing, based on our current space available, which is good information to have because that wasn't as clear by the state in previous years. They definitely provided more information in regards to that. For the chain and the CEC, rolling into the next page, you'll see that there are 15 open spots available across the board based on those section recommendations. You'll see the asterisks next to grades 4 through 7, just noting that there may be some continued discussion about maximum class sizes, but knowing that we have multi-age groups at the CEC as well, we want to make sure we have balanced class sizes and balanced groups in that facility.
It looks like that right now our charter contract talks about 18-to-1 for all of those, and it looks as if this chart is anticipating that that change will happen. Is that correct?
The next item on the agenda will.
That's the next item on the agenda. Yes.
Okay, yes, all right.
Which is why an asterisk was noted within this report. Sorry, did you want to say something?
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's why it's asterisk.
Okay. And then as I shared with the middle school and high school, grades 5 through 8, based on our current enrollment, based on our current class sizes for the regular education area, we are open for open enrollment students across the board. So the recommendations based on, and the high school, the same, excuse me, but the recommendations from this report is to request the board's approval for the space listed above for the regular education open enrollment applications, and then that there is no space within the special education department.
Wow, look at how little the 5th grade class will be. That is really noteworthy.
So again, those are projections based off current enrollments.
Right.
And, you know, like I shared the projections with you guys last year compared to this year, and there's some differences there, and you can't always tell that necessarily.
And being the mid-sized district that we are, those bubble year class sizes that we see, you know, that has staffing implications across as those students transition from grade level to grade level. So, you know, our goal is both fiscally responsible of looking at hiring and maintaining a balanced budget every year, but as well as also maximizing those spaces where we can.
Mark, in your predictions, do you use a confidence interval on those two?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a confidence interval on those predictions that you have, like you go somebody above, somebody below?
No, sir, I just utilize what the current enrollment is.
Oh, okay. No, I just meant your projection off of that, okay. Well, I'm just curious if you had a plus or minus error out there.
Yeah.
Spoken by the math teacher.
Okay. Are there any other?
Let's go back to statistics 101.
Other questions? No. Okay, before we take action on that, perhaps we should take a look at the next item on the agenda, which is the amendment to the Chain Exploration Center contract.
I don't know, Rhonda, did you want to speak to that, or?
Sure. Actually, this isn't about class size. This one is, the first step is about adding the grade levels faster than projected. So what I have highlighted is the original contract wording in which it says that we will add one grade above each year, so K-8. Based on the success of the school and the fiscal implications of having specialists drive up for one class, because next year it would be just kindergarten left out there as Chain Elementary. We propose that we go skip ahead a couple of years and next year be all Chain Exploration Center and no Chain Elementary. That's the summary. So everything that's highlighted is the original wording, and then anything in the blue would be the recommended change.
It does not specifically speak to the potential change from 18 to 1 to 20 to 1.
No, that still has to go through the process.
But
This is already been approved.
with a proposed change in the contract as provided here, it's
This would have no.
speaking specifically to optimal student population. It does not necessarily speak to where we may come to agreement on if that might change.
Correct, but the word optimal is, we're, even if we add 4 more,
Yep.
it
Okay.
doesn't say absolute population.
Right. Okay. All right, so we'll go back to the, I've lost my own thought. The enrollment enrollment update and other enrollment information, which we need to take action on.
Should we just take them as they're listed here? Yeah.
As they're
Start
listed.
with the regular ed non-resident seats, and then the next one can be with the special ed, and then we can go into the chain amendment.
I'll make.
So under E1, open enrollment limits.
I'll make a motion that we accept the proposal as it pertains to open enrollment for the 2021 school year in 4K through 4th grade.
As a requirement, if I can just make sure that the motion is appropriately reflected, you're saying 4K to 27, the K through 4 to 56, and the K through 7, and the CEC to 15.
So moved.
Okay, motion, is there a second?
Second. Now, I just want to make sure, okay, we're talking about,
Is there a second?
there is a second.
Discussion.
Just want to make sure I'm on the right motion. Are we talking about the change the contracts related, or we're looking at the open?
No, we are looking at the open enrollment
Okay.
limits.
My only concern about this is that we're approving an open enrollment level that calls for boosting the 18-to-1 ratio for 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th to 20-to-1 before we have that contractual agreement. And what happens if that contractual agreement doesn't happen?
Oh.
My understanding is that we're really not proposing that it go, there's an asterisk there.
Right.
And we know that that's something that we wanted to negotiate at I forget the date when the core team and Steve met with Rhonda and Megan. We talked about the sustainability, we talked about the perceptions and a variety of other elements that go in, and what can we do to collaborate to ensure the success of the chain, of the CEC, I mean, the charter. And
This is not changing, however, the contract at this time.
Got it.
right, correct.
All right.
But I see your point, though. You're suggesting maybe if we go down to the third motion there, if we don't approve that, then this would be sort of moot, some of it, because we wouldn't be adding another class level to the chain.
Oh,
That's why I thought it was sort of like we should do that one first, and then come back to the numbers.
If you approve them all, we're all good.
Yeah, I know. I know, just saying.
I'm okay with
Okay.
doing it in this
All right.
order. I just want to make sure that if we say we have this available and then it turns out for whatever reason that we're sticking with 18 to 1, there isn't some legal obligation.
Right. I think we're okay right now.
Okay. Good.
Okay,
All
so-
right, then I'm fine.
So the motion is for enrollment in the 2020-2021 school year. In 4K goes to 27, K through 4 to 56, K through 7 at the CEC to 15. Any other discussion?
So this means the addition of 2 teachers out
No.
there? Would that be 2?
Okay, so 2 different things. So this is back to this open enrollment perspective. That's based off our projected enrollments and how many staff we currently have to avoid adding more staff without adding an appropriate number of students. So the first motion is about just regular ed open enrollment, and we're open for business in any regular ed grade. Currently, we're projected except second grade, because if we added more second graders to open enrollment today, we'd have to add more staff.
Right.
So we're trying to stay staffing neutral at best.
Okay.
If not, maybe even reduce staff through maybe some attritional areas, as we said, being fiscally responsible. So that's the open enrollment part of it. There's the regular ed open enrollment, which we're open for. And like Lori said, for the special ed open enrollment, we'd really like to say we don't have any spaces, because if we add more students through the open enrollment process, we have an IEP, we're out of compliance or regulations or recommended regulations with caseloads. So that's that. The separate one is on the expansion faster with the grades at the CEC. And we did have a conversation about enrollments and class sizes and optimal sizes, but for open enrollment purposes, we really need to have those class sizes there. I'm sorry, not the class sizes, the actual classes there, the grades at the CEC.
Right.
We need to come back to the table with another conversation about what those class sizes will be at the CEC.
Okay.
Right now, we know the contract says 18 to 1. We've had some initial conversations. You know, we think we can get to the 20 to 1. But again, right now,
Well,
it's
we
got
will
actual
have
spike.
additional conversations.
We'll have
We don't know
additional
where that will
conversations.
end up, but we do have to make sure that we have parity, in essence, between our other buildings and the CEC. So,
So there's really 3 things on the table: then
Yes.
open enrollment for regular ed, open enrollment for special ed, and then the CEC
and the
expansion.
motion
fast.
right now is for open enrollment for regular ed.
Okay. All right, I do have one more question, and it's just looking at the proposal for the contract change.
So we are not going there right now. Our
I just-
motion is specific to the open enrollment for regular education.
Yes, I understand that.
Okay.
I just
You
wondered.
still have
I still have a question about, there is no mention of 4K at the CEC in terms of open enrollment for 2020.
Because 4K falls under Waupaca 4K as a full
It's a full
program.
thing.
Correct. It's its own
Yes,
school activity.
so you'll see 4K also isn't listed under WLC. It's only listed as Waupaca 4K.
Okay. I think I got correctly. Thank you, Rhonda.
Okay.
So maybe to answer your question, though, we'd like to maintain a section of 4K at the Chain Exploration Center underneath the Waupaca 4K umbrella. Ideally, those students then would be the students who would feed into first grade at the CEC. Or kindergarten, excuse me. Well, eventually first grade.
And then
Eventually, but one grade at a time.
Okay, there is a motion. Do we need clarity on the motion any further, or are we good? Okay. Motion and second, voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, thank you. Is there a motion with regard to the enrollment for special education?
I move that we accept the open enrollment recommendation for special ed.
And the recommendation being allowing 0 non-resident enrollments for 2020-21 school year.
Second.
Motion and second, further any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And now the enrollment update, I'm sorry, now the amendment to the Chain Exploration Center contract.
I would move to approve amending the contract wording regarding grade level additions per year to reflect CEC being a 4K through grade 7 school in 2021 and a 4K through 8 in 21-22.
Is there a second to that
Second.
motion?
Steve had.
Steve, you did?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, Activities Department update.
Joe is here.
Yeah, so in my first 5 months here, I've been really impressed by the amount of activities and events that students are participating in all the time, from all the music opportunities with the Madrigal musical. There's improv nights. Some of the highlights I just wanted to share too, on top of all that other great stuff that's going on. For FFA, they got published in the National FFA magazine, New Horizons, highlighting their exceptional community service in Waupaca and the outstanding student leadership that the students have exhibited planning and executing projects. They also had a very successful Farm Fest where they served 1,500 to 2,000 people meal, and then also taught them some agriculture lessons. Evie Riley placed in a nationally proficiency area of goat production and received a scholarship for her career success, and they are a nationally ranked chapter. Our debate group finished first in both tournaments they attended. Cross country had 9 runners set their personal records at sectionals, and Sawyer Zabel was named second team all conference. Abram Jackson was third team. Football, Sam Grawl and Thomas Katoon were named first team, Colby Bernhardt second, and Sawyer Sopa third. Girls golf advanced all the way to team sectionals right before state, and they were co-conference champs. Katie Ash and Lily Sandro were both named first team. For boys soccer, they earned the #1 seed in the regional playoffs. We got to host all of their playoff games here. They advanced all the way to the sectional final game, Game 4 state. Dawson Patsky was named first team all conference. Bryce Bolton and Evan Gusky were second team, and Keenan Polovitsky was third team. For volleyball, they got to host the first round regional game, which I think is the first time in a while, by having a higher rank. And they advanced to the regional semifinal game. Maddie Rhodes was named second team all conference. So those were some of the highlights from this fall. For the activities department itself, some updates of things that I've been working alongside with a lot of people. One of the first things I've been doing is I created a Google Forms survey to try to gather information about our clubs and activities at the high school and the middle school. Being new to the school, and a lot of these new clubs are different from other districts I worked at, it's a way for me to kind of gain information and kind of understand what we offer, how many students are participating, and that sort of thing, to help make decisions moving forward. For the athletic code and extracurricular code of conduct, I've been speaking with John and Mike about looking at potentially updating ours. I think we've had it in place for a while, and I just noticed that there might be some better ways of making the code more equitable. Right now, it's just you have first offense, second offense, third offense, whereas some of them, I reached out to the WIAA and they gave me 3 examples of some school districts that have really good code of conducts. So we reviewed them, and I just met with some high school coaches and advisors to get their opinion on it, and then I'm going to be doing the same at the middle school, and then I'm going to share it with the admin team to get their thoughts before presenting maybe some potential updates to that. I've been working with quite a few people on this Wall of Excellence, kind of like a Hall of Fame, but instead of it just being a sports Hall of Fame, we'd like it to be able to include all different activities that we offer. So Mr. Sari and then Jim Tranto brought it up to me early on when I got hired here. This is something we'd really love to be able to do here. So I went to Berlin. They have a athletic Hall of Fame, and I kind of met with them to understand how they went about doing that. And I just reached out recently to committee members that might want to be a part of it, that we can start kind of brainstorming what exactly that would look like. But basically the idea would be students that have graduated from here, or teachers, coaches, advisors that have done something special. This would be an opportunity to highlight some of those things that build pride in the community, and it'd be a great thing for students to pass every day, that they could know, hey, you know, these are people from here as well, I can do that too. So they can set the bar high for themselves. I've continued to do head coaching evaluations at the end of the season, giving them positive feedback of things that are going really well, and then also areas that we can work to grow. Live streaming, there was these Pixelot cameras that were purchased, I believe in the summer, with help from the technology department, and they've been really great about helping us install the cameras in the high school gym right now, so we can live stream the girls and boys basketball games, wrestling, and eventually, hopefully in the spring, we'll have them set up at Comet Field. So then going forward, we can live stream soccer, track, anything that's out at Comet Field, football, where people can subscribe through the NFHS network I think it's either $10 a month, or if you want to do a whole year, you could pay $60, and then you can watch any of the home events. So it's a pretty cool opportunity for people, especially if there's family members that live out of town, so that they can watch some of those events. We received a donation from Youth Baseball to help us create
We have the old NFL blackout, so that unless we are.
You know, I don't think everything's screwed in there, but they did say that we would receive, I believe it's 10%, I've got it written down in my office, of the subscription money that they'll send once we accumulate $50. I think it's quarterly, they send a check to us as like a share of the profits of that. Youth Baseball donation, and along with some district funds, we were able to create a bullpen area, that 2 of them, that can be used for baseball and softball, which will allow pitchers to warm up, and then also some hitters to get extra practice swings in, which will make practices and game days more efficient for them. So that construction has already started out there. And then the last thing I have on here is spreading the good news through social media. Heidi Nowicki's been awesome helping us get the word out of some of the great things that are going on with our Facebook page by having a Friday featured student. So she's been reaching out to advisors, coaches, and asking who's a student that's really stand out and doing something positive, like especially when it comes to either their leadership or like their good sportsmanship or just being part of a team. So it's been a really cool way to just highlight somebody. You know, it doesn't always have to be the star. It can be somebody that just is really doing something awesome as a teammate or a member of a club. So that's been really cool. And then we've been using them as a resource to help us get out other positive information about, you know, playoff games or the musicals coming up, or just to help spread that word of some of the cool things that are going on in the district. So.
Very good, thank you. Any questions?
No, but I have something for Joe. I'm going to give this to you because you mentioned the Hall of Fame that's coming up. I just received this from my old high school, which is always looking for money. But in their brochure, they have the same thing we're talking about, where they recognize outstanding alumni, staff, and volunteers who have served their schools, blah, blah, blah. And they have 3 people. Then they have an awards night, and then those people come to talk. One of them graduated in 92, one in 70, and one in 71. So it isn't necessarily people who are just recent. You can go all the way back.
Correct.
And that's why you're looking for it. So
Yes.
I'll give this to you, and you can put it with your file of all.
Are you in that, Pat?
No, I'm not.
But you're a playwright.
Yeah, right.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
It's kind of neat, Joe, that we've had so many groups that have thought of this, because during one of our retreats in September, we had brought this up a long time ago. And it's neat that you got the bull by the horn and you're going with it now. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And there's been a lot of help. By no means is even where we're at now. I've had a lot of help too from different people. So it's exciting. I think it'd be a really cool thing if we can get there. So the goal would be by next fall, if we could have our first dinner where we invite the people that are going to be added to the Wall of Excellence, invite their families to come, and then, you know, maybe tied into the homecoming football game. So we have the dinner beforehand. We recognize them again out when there's a lot of people here, just as a cool thing to build some community spirit.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great.
All right, moving on, we have our recommendation on our physical education substitute credit policy, 345.63.
Yes, thank you. We've had the physical education substitute credit for about 7 years. We've had students take advantage of it. But as we're moving towards our standards-based grading and assessment, there are specific standards and skills that are going to be taught within there, and we're looking not to be able to have our students replace it with just a WIA support. So what the recommendation would be is that we would have, with the incoming freshmen next year, they would not be allowed to have that. Our current students who are working through the system would be grandfathered in and be allowed to take advantage of the waiver.
I assume that the fire department has weighed in on this,
Yes, they have.
and what do they think about it,
They're very much in support.
of the change?
Yes.
I think it's great. This was a long time coming, especially with a wife who's a phy ed teacher. And all the research that shows that if the kids are doing something in school that they're going to perform better in the academic classroom after working out.
Physical
And
activity.
some physical activity during the day. It's well needed, and I appreciate you for bringing that to the attention.
Are you looking for a motion?
We would be looking for a motion.
Then I would move that we remove the option of, or we eliminate our physical education substitute credit policy 345.63.
Second.
And that it would end with the class of 2023.
Second.
You just worded that a little differently, so end with 23, not starting with 24.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
looking at the
You mixed them all up, it's getting late.
Yeah. All right, motion and second, any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Pat Fair,
Aye.
Steve Haggett,
Aye.
Sandy Robinson.
Yes.
Betty Monahan,
Yes.
Bill Crow,
Yes.
Steve Johnson.
Yes. Okay, with that, before I take a motion to adjourn, everyone please remember that these are to be returned. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Betty, second by, thank you. Thank you, everyone.